Like this. Hit it.
The Roger Report live morning show, weekdays at 9 a.m.
Say y'all, I was on Roger's panel a few times and I couldn't take it. The heat. I got out the kitchen. It was hot. I was sweating. I had to get out.
He's Roger, and he's right.
Check this out.
We can live or die. You choose. I have spoken to you a lot of times in hatred and anger, and you have not heard me. Well, you had better hear me today. If you won't listen to me when I make an appeal for the Negroes because you have no concern for the Negroes, listen to me when I make an appeal for America. You claim you love America. Well, we love America. But you are driving us back and you are making a Samson out of us, and we are going to pull down the pillar. And then you think we have no right to ask for something? Is it too much to ask you to grant us human dignity? Should we be put down and shot to death for this request? If so, you can aim your guns. What the hell do you think we care about dying if you're going to deny us the right to live?
Good morning, folks, and welcome to another edition of the Roger Report Live, the best show on social media. If you are new to the channel, go ahead and take a moment out to hit that like button, because this is where you're going to find the best content on social media, and you don't have to worry about it because you're going to have me right here to make sure that happens. And if you've already been coming to the channel for a while, then go ahead, hit that like button, because you already know what time it is, and you know that this is where you're going to get the best content on social media. It's not a mystery to you at this point. You've seen other people do it. You've seen other people do it well. But what you have not seen is anyone do it quite the way I do it. So make sure you hit that like button. And everyone, yes, everyone, take a moment out to share the content, y'all. Share the content. There are so many people who need to get great content like this. And it's just a small thing you can do to help the world be a better place. And isn't that what we want at the end of the day? Don't we want the world to be a better place? Of course we do. So share the content out. Share it through your social media. Share it through word of mouth, or even text someone's phone. But do what you got to do to help spread the word. All right, folks, today we are back with another edition, and it's interesting. That's what I'm gonna say. Interesting, y'all. I'm fulfilling another request. If you did not check it out, y'all, of course, there was a link in the description. And if you're a newer person here to the Roger Report Live, make sure that anytime you're watching an episode, you take a moment out just to see if there's going to be anything in the description with a link, which will let you know what's going on in the show. You know, a lot of time we're going to be making references to something to make sure you're not lost during the broadcast. Just, check, make sure there's not a link in the description that you need. It won't be a link every day, but there will be a link sometime. So definitely make sure just to be on the quote unquote safe side. All right. And there was a link that came up as a request. Shout out to the brother who requested. I don't know if people would want me to say it publicly if they wanted me to share that they brought this up, but they can bring it up themselves in the chat or whatever they want to. If they tell me to, the heck, I announce it on the show. No, don't make me no, never mind. But an interesting piece that was done, as y'all can see, years ago, and it dealt with fatherhood. Okay. And this is supposed to be fatherhood from a Black perspective. You know, I'm just gonna say a lot of interesting stuff was being said in this particular episode. And I guess we're gonna have to get into some of the things about raising a daughter. What's the goal? You know, what we trying to accomplish and things like that, y'all. But before I go too far into this, of course, before I go too far into this, I got to, give shouts out where it's due. All right, because we have some great people over here at the Roger Report Live that take it upon themselves to be the support of the channel. These are our sponsors, y'all, because we ain't really making it with the system. We ain't really making it, especially not right at this moment. We ain't really making it with the system, but we got people who step up and make something happen here on a regular basis, and I appreciate each and every one of them, y'all. And as I've said on many a time, y'all, big or small, I do appreciate y'all. There's no financial contribution that you can give that's going to be too small. There's no financial contribution that you can give that's going to be too big. I do appreciate it all, and it helps me to get things done the way that I do it. So I definitely appreciate you, every single one of y'all. But shout out to FLX. He is the sponsor of today's stream. Okay, shout out to FLX. And y'all, we gonna get in. Well, before we get into that, let me give a couple shout outs to some of the first people to check in this morning. Because of course, when you getting ready to start a show, it's always great to see that you got people already checking in, letting you know, hey, I'm here. Let's get this party rocking. It's a beautiful thing at the end of the day. But if you have been chilling over here at the Roger Report Live for any real amount of time, you're gonna be very much aware that we do have something. And there can only be one, y'all. There can only be one. And you know what? I'm going to say shout out to the pit crew, because I don't know how they be doing it, y'all, because you got to go get you one, okay? But once again, another one of the pit crew members. So don't question the pit crew. Don't question the pit crew. They've done it again. Chef Mike's Roundtable is the Highlander of today's stream. The pit crew be getting it in, y'all. I've been noticing the pit crew been steady hitting these things. Pit crew been on it, a good amount of the time. So shout out to the pit crew. Shout out to the pit crew, and shout out to Chef Mike's Roundtable. Coolest man in show business, if you ask me. He is our unofficial quality control guy. He gets stuff in order, and and he'll clean up the stuff that even I won't get to. So shout out to Chef Mike. Appreciate all you do, and shout out to the pit crew. Appreciate you guys. Speaking of the pit crew, y'all know who came in right behind Chef Mike? My main man, J-Dub, the deputy on the grill, came in right behind him. So shout out again to the pit crew. They be on it, y'all. They be on it. And I appreciate them a great deal. Real talk. Because somebody got to do the dirty work, y'all. Somebody got to do the dirty work. Shout out to the Righteous Teacher. Glad to have you here. Shout out to Inspired Truth Broadcast. He is in the building. Heck, our chat MVP right now. Tunnel Runner is in the house. Great to see you, my brother. Great to see you. Hey, Sarah B. Sarah B is in the house. Great to see you. Devon Townsend has pulled up a seat to the cool table. Glad to see you, my brother. Glad to see you. Gyogami is in the house. Shout out to Grab Second Get. Eddie is in the building as well. Afro Merchant is checked in. Always good to see you. Ryan Decipher has landed. Shout out to you, brother. Shout out to y'all. And we're going to get into it, y'all. We're going to get into it. There was a very interesting clip that, I watched this. I was like, this is some stuff. Now, at the end of it, I did say, let me see what the credits say just a little bit. See what the credits say just a little bit. And I saw some names that I wasn't surprised about. I'll just say that. I saw some names that I was not surprised about. Seemed like some Black women names. Now, y'all, this seemed like a show that was back in the day with it was designed to draw Black people. And when you put something out there to draw Black people, you're going to draw all kinds of other folks too, because y'all know how white folks get. If you've been in this country for any amount of time, you should know white folks nosy as heck when you put something out there for Black folks. You know what I'm saying? White folks nosy as heck. So don't think for a second they wasn't all up in the video too. Trying to see what's going on. What them niggas talking about, anything that was geared toward Black people, white folks would take interest in it to a certain degree, and they want to see what it's about. Is it a threat here? Is there a problem? Do we need to do something? Does somebody need to be killed? Does somebody need to go to prison? They gonna do stuff like that. And I'm pretty sure they did it with this episode as well. But it seems like there was a TV show that was geared toward Black people. Okay. Now, this show shows some very interesting things in it. So that's what I'm gonna say. Very interesting thing. Now, I'm gonna remind y'all of something. And unfortunately, I done lost multiple channels over here. If you're a newer person, I done lost multiple channels. I've already told y'all, when it comes to women, I just don't take their word for granted like that. I would take their word for granted as far as purposes of a show, but I don't just believe what women say. They generally lie so much, it doesn't make sense to me just to go off their words. I have to know you personally just to hear you say something as a woman and just go with it. And somebody may say, well, that's not fair, that's not right. No, it is fair and it is right, because women lie all the time. Okay. Well, I ain't gonna say all the time, but they definitely have lies in their mouth on a very consistent basis. We as men cannot trust women with lunch. Okay. And I bring this example up on a regular basis because we all know it's true. You can't even ask your woman, baby, do you want something to eat? I'm about to go to the store. I'm going to the chicken shack. I'm finna go to the local chicken shack. Give me something to eat. Do you want anything? Now, she wants something, but what's she gonna do? She gonna lie and say, no, I'm fine. And as soon as you come back, if you ain't got her own food, and sometimes that don't even help. If you ain't got her own food, that's gonna be a problem, because you know what she is? Hungry. Okay? And you know what she wants to do? Eat your food. Now, people say, well, that's just them being cute and all that type. It's a lie at the end of the day. When you tell somebody something with the intent to deceive them, you're lying. Just is what it is. Okay. Now, people can make a mistake. People may say something that's not accurate. But when you tell somebody something with the intent to deceive them, you're lying. It just is what it is. And Black women lie on a regular basis. It just is what it is. Okay. They just lie on a regular basis. So for me to even listen to this, granted, I'm taking some stuff. I'm trying to, anything I took at face value, I just did that for show purposes. Because truth be told, unless I really know a woman personally, if she says something, unless there's a man to corroborate her story, I don't really take it like that. It just is what it is. Now, y'all could be mad. You could say anything about me that you want to, but it ain't my fault that women lie on such a regular basis. It's not smart to just believe them. That ain't got nothing to do with me at the end of the day. Y'all can say, oh, you being mean, you being misogynist, which that ain't got nothing to do with misogyny. Misogyny is a hatred of women. It's not identifying women's behavior. Okay? So I just keep it real. And I don't have to lie to you to make you feel more comfortable. I don't do that. I ain't gonna lie to myself to make some other person feel more comfortable at the end of the day. If I'm gonna lie to make you feel comfortable, maybe I'll do that, but I ain't gonna lie to myself so you can be comfortable. You know what I'm saying? Not happening, not with me. So we had an episode of some show that probably was a serious show for adults back in the day. I'm not familiar with it myself, so all I've seen is this one episode, so all I can do is speculate. And they were talking about relationships men had with their daughters. Okay. All right. Now, some very interesting things got said in this episode. Okay. And I'm going to say it was some, even trying to take some of the stuff at face value, it was some couple things said that's just extremely hard to believe. I'm just going to say that. It's just extremely hard to believe some of the stuff that got said in this particular episode. Okay. Now, I don't know none of these women personally, so I can't personally say they lying. I just think they're being women at the end of the day. They just being women. And they doing what women do. And I'm gonna say that first one, y'all, I don't know, man, because sometimes you just get something in your head. I don't know. Sometimes it might be in your spirit or something like that. Because I don't know everything, but I looked at that first woman that was talking, and I was looking at her like, is she light skinned or is she mixed? You know, is she light skinned or is she, because you can have light skinned black folks and they just light skinned black folks. And maybe, some whiteness happening way back in the day somewhere. You know what I'm saying? Great great grandpa, great great grandma, whatever the case is. You can have some light skinned black folks out there. I ain't saying you can't. But I was looking at her like, is she mixed? Meaning her dad was white or her mom was white. And then they got with somebody else who happened to be black. I'm sitting there looking like, is she mixed? And then they show her dad. And I seen the dad. I was like, okay, where's he mixed? Did nothing change. And I guess, and I tell y'all, they got this thing about presentation. So I do believe they were trying to push that this is a black father. Dude look mixed. I'm just gonna keep it real. Dude look mixed. And I'm not saying that based on anything they said. That was just what I saw. Okay, that's just what I saw. Sometimes I guess if you're around black people enough, sometimes you just see some people and it just seems like they mixed. Sometimes it be some freckles or something, or whatever. I'm not saying black folks can't have freckles, but sometimes you just know. And then you see their parents and you get your confirmation. Okay. So I ain't saying they definitely are mixed, but I'm very suspicious. I'm very suspicious. And with that first woman who was speaking, I think it's a white man at the top of that. You know what I'm saying? That's what I think. I ain't gonna say it is. I think it's a white man at the top of that, though. But I'm gonna say this, y'all. There were some important points that were brought up. Okay, there were some important points that was brought up. Okay. Now, what the woman claimed, what the woman claimed is something that I know some fathers will do. I know some fathers will do. And I know even amongst black men, some fathers would do this because a lot of black men have made critical mistakes about listening to the nonsense of women and without putting much thought into it. They just heard women say it and they just did it. I'm not saying women say a bunch of bad stuff and you can't do anything they say, but women do say a bunch of bad stuff. So therefore you should examine what they say and then come to a reasonable conclusion for yourself. But a lot of us as black men, we don't take the time out to really examine what they said to see if we come to and agree with the conclusion they presented as reasonable. Because that's what they'll do. They'll present something as reasonable, even though it's not quite reasonable. So everybody in that series, it was like something was kind of off with them. Now, I'm not saying people have to be perfect. But how come nobody just grew up in a normal lifestyle and like everything was cool? So, but I guess, it's television. People want drama. You want people to have discussions after the TV show. You want people to come back the next week. I'm assuming this was a weekly television show. So I get it. You go find people with some dirty stuff going on so you can make a profit off the dirt. Because that's what folks do. You want to make a profit off the dirt. You want to make a profit off dysfunction. You also want to promote dysfunction in a lot of scenarios. Now, y'all don't think because this show presented as black that it's a black show. And that's another thing we got to be careful about. At the end of the day, white people do be controlling stuff. So you got to get it past them. You have to get it past them. So do the white supremacy folks that head things want to put this on air? Or do they say, no, we don't want to put this on air? So that's why I give a lot of credit to Bill Cosby. He was able to slip a lot of great stuff in through the Cosby Show that got past white supremacist folks who are gatekeepers. And it is what it is. Okay. He was slipping stuff past. Was the Cosby Show a perfect show? Absolutely not. But it was hilarious. And he did slip a lot of good stuff in with the other stuff that had to be dealt with. Just is what it is. Okay. And, we'll probably do an episode in the future really examining the Cosby Show. We probably will in the future, y'all. And I'm going to throw it out there right now, y'all. That Tyler Perry movie, Straw, and I did do a review on Straw. Okay. If you don't know, I did do a review on Straw. I think that movie is actually worth a true discussion. So I'm going to say all my guys who join the panel. So even some women out there, if you want to as well, I think Monday, I'll do it for Monday to give y'all time to check it out over the weekend. I really want to do a deep dive into Straw, okay? Because Straw is seeming to be making some waves. You know, I, it's the Tyler Perry movie, but it ain't quite the Tyler Perry movie you might expect, which probably is why it's making a few waves out there. So I'm going to say check out Straw over the weekend because we'll probably do a deep dive into that. Not a review, but a deep dive into Straw for Monday's show, okay? All right, now, y'all, I saw this woman, okay, this first woman who talked about her daddy. And I'm going to say this is a huge mistake that some men make. You raise your daughter and you do not raise her with the understanding that you need to do certain things because you'll have a husband one day. Because you shouldn't be, as a father, you shouldn't have a small child and you just don't believe she can get married. That shouldn't happen. I'm not saying you won't have a child that you won't believe a young lady won't get married at a certain point, but when she's small, you're supposed to have some high hopes when she's small, okay? So shout out to all the dads with with small daughters out there. You supposed to believe your small daughter can get married. We can raise her right. We can get her fixed up enough that somebody gonna take her. Okay, somebody gonna take my baby. Okay. That's how you're supposed to do it. I can't tell you what to do, but I'm telling you how you're supposed to do it. When you got a small child, you're supposed to be raising your daughter like, no, I'm gonna make her right. She gonna be good. Somebody gonna take my baby. Because it's gonna come a day in time when she needs to be somebody else's baby too. Okay, she needs to be somebody else's baby too. You know, and I will say there are some black men because we fall into nonsense, and you know the black community was, you know, they do so much stuff to try to keep it matriarchal. We don't do what makes sense a lot of the times. So when it comes to men and how they raise some of the daughters of the black community. And I would say at this point, you know, I mean, it's so many fathers is not even there. So when a father is present and he make these critical mistakes, it's just worse because there's hardly any fathers around because of the selfishness of black women. So, you know, there's hardly fathers around when it comes to children due to the selfishness of black women. Yeah, I'm saying it. I know people don't want to admit that that's the reason, but no, due to the selfishness of black women, you know, you don't have a lot of fathers who are raising their daughters in the first place. So it's very critical when you're a father not to give your daughter bad messaging that's going to get her messed up for the rest of her life. And that first one was saying that, you know, her dad gave her some messaging, and the way she reported it, because I don't just listen to women and believe what they say. I don't know what her daddy said. All I know is what she claims her daddy said. And I already know, you know, black women don't like no accountability. So why would she tell me the absolute truth if it came out to a negative thing? You know, so her just shifting blame to her father, very reasonable conclusion to come to. I ain't gonna say the dad wasn't wrong, but it's hard for me just to accept her version of whatever she's saying. Now I do it again. I can do it for show purposes. But if I knew her personally, I ain't trying to hear what she talking about her daddy said. And then my thing is, you an adult now. What did you agree with? See, your dad can give you bad messaging, but at some point in time, you're supposed to get that fixed up. Point blank, period. But she made her claim that her daddy said something that men shouldn't say to their daughters. Okay? And I'm saying multiple things. Meaning that, you know, you got to get yourself together and be. Now, she used the word self-sufficient, which, you know, a lot of people don't actually say self-sufficient. They say independent because they want them to be alone. Okay? If you were teaching your daughter how to be self-sufficient until you get married, that would be a different thing. Okay? And that's something that is not taught enough in the black community. People teaching their daughters how to be self-sufficient, if anything, until they get married. And truth be told, you don't necessarily even need to teach them to be self-sufficient. You need them to teach them to be a good adult who is worthy of a marriage. That's one of the main things, if not the main thing, a black woman needs to learn. How do you become a good adult so somebody will take you on as a wife? Because a man gonna have a bill that comes with you. How do we make sure you're good enough that a man is willing to pay the bill? And a lot of people don't want to think in those terms because it can be difficult for them from a mental standpoint. And then, people don't want to feel like, women, when it comes to women, it's all about some financial transaction. It's not all about a financial transaction, but financial transactions will be part of it. Just is what it is. They will be part of it. Okay? Because as a husband, you take on the responsibility of taking care of your wife. And last time I checked, that's not free. It just ain't free. Taking care of a woman is not free. So you're going to have to put some money on it at the end of the day. Okay? I ain't saying you got to be rich or talk like a lot of yahoos on the internet talking about, yeah, you got to make 6 figures. No, those are stupid people. Okay? Not in 2025 do you need to make 6 figures to take care of a woman. Stupid people do. Okay, stupid people have it locked in their head that you need to make 6 figures so you can take care of a woman. Very dumb people say that. And they may be experts in something else, but they're extremely dumb in this area. Because it don't take 6 figures to take care of no woman. Okay? And truth be told, before you get married, if a person grew up as a normal person in America, you should be nowhere close to 6 figures at the time you get married in the first place. 6 figures should be something down the road, if you even get to it, in 2025. And I'm saying that just in case people hit us 200 years in the future. Okay? Now, the woman was saying that she basically needs to be good on her own in case stuff don't work out. Now, I get that there's people who say this. And I do believe there are black men who will tell us to their daughters because they believe too much stuff that women say. And they care about stupid thoughts that women have on a regular basis. And let's keep it real. There's nothing wrong with being prepared. But being prepared is a lot different than telling your daughter how to fail. Because when you tell your daughter you must do this just in case everything ain't going to work out, you're teaching her how to fail. That's normally how it goes amongst black folks. Let's keep it real. You're normally teaching her how to fail. You should teach her how to do things in a correct way. So if something happens, you'll have so much, it ain't going to make no difference. Plus, one of the main teachings that I do not see people teaching. Now, me, when I'm around young ladies, I would tell them stuff. You need to be able to do this because, when you get married one day, such and such and such and such. So when I tell them stuff, it's going to be based around the fact when you get married one day, you got to know this. You got to know that. You have to present yourself like this. Don't sit with your legs open. That's not good. You are the young lady. Young ladies don't sit with their legs open. Okay? And your husband don't want you sitting with your legs open. What about when you get married one day? So you could reinforce a lot of different things to even young girls, and you can attach it with their husband. Okay? I tell young lady, why are you sitting down trying to eat before the men are served? When you get married one day, you got to understand you got to serve people. You don't sit down and the men ain't eating. Okay? Before you get a plate of food and start eating yourself, you make sure every man in the house has been served. Now, why would you tell a girl something like that? Yeah, because you want her to be a servant to men. Now, I get that there's a lot of people who out here who are feminists, and y'all believe that women shouldn't serve men, even though they were literally created to do so. Literally created to do so. Okay? And even if you don't believe in the Bible, you don't believe in God, if you a normal human with just normal thinking level, you just think like you ain't got to be no genius. A human that can't serve is useless. Think about that, y'all. A human being who cannot serve is useless. What do you do with a human that can't serve? See, humans that can't serve are usually people with medical issues. Okay? I can't do certain things because I literally don't have arms. I can't do certain things because I'm literally blind. I can't do certain things because I literally don't have no legs. All right. But to be a regular, normal person and you don't understand you're supposed to be in service to other people. I mean, you are incredibly dumb if you're an adult. I'm just gonna keep it real. You're an incredibly dumb person if you're an adult. Every normal, useful human serves people. Okay? Even men who are the leaders, we serve people. When you get up, go to work, earn that money, and you pay that light bill, you are serving yourself and others because they benefit off that light bill being paid. When you pay that gas bill, you are serving yourself and others because now y'all can go to the stove and cook. Okay, you can put clothes in the dryer. All right. When you pay that rent or pay that mortgage, you are paying so people can have a place to stay, so they can have some more safety than they would if they were sleeping outside. Yeah, even if you're in a bad neighborhood, you're paying so you can provide somebody with more safety than they would have if they were sleeping outside. You may not have the best place, you may not be in a fancy neighborhood, but it's better than sleeping outside. Real talk. And you got a place where they can keep they stuff until they get back. They actually can go somewhere and not worry about people stealing their stuff. All right. Now, based on what that first woman was saying, I don't think she was taught to be a wife. Sound like she was taught to use and abuse men. Now she blamed it on her daddy, which I don't know if her daddy told her that or not. I'm not saying he didn't. Because I've heard even fathers say some very ridiculous stuff because they listen to women too much. But at the end of the day, if your daughter was never presented the idea that you should be doing X, Y, and Z, so when you grow up, you can be in a healthy marriage, then how can she be even a good woman? Now, I don't know why this woman got presented per se. I really don't know. Now I definitely got my suspicions. Okay, I definitely have my suspicions. All right. So some crazy stuff got said in this particular thing. And now the woman said something about you can always come home. Now I totally get you can come home if you divorced. You possibly could come home depending upon why you got divorced. That's what I would say. I ain't gonna say you can always come home. It depends on the context. Now, if you with some guy and it's not working out, sure you can come home if it's not your husband. But real talk, if you got married, you at home. Okay. This is probably something fathers need to hear. And this is probably something men need to hear before they become fathers. You need to tell your daughter once you get married, her home over there. Okay. Unless you're in one of those situations where you are going to actually let your daughter and her husband live in your home. Because I know there's some people who do that from a cultural perspective and things like that. I was talking to one of those gentlemen just the other day. So I understand there's people with cultural perspective where they do something like that. Now, me as a guy who grew up in America, y'all gonna have to get out. Okay. Now, if my daughter and my son-in-law needed my help for a time period, that would be fine. That would be fine. I ain't said I wouldn't let them stay with me for a time period. But at some point, y'all gonna have to get up out of here. Real talk. You're gonna have to live your own life. Okay. I need my son-in-law to be the head of his own family. Okay. Because I can't be the head of your family. And I think this is something that Black men do have to battle with, unfortunately. So I'm gonna use this ridiculous stuff that was presented in that TV show to say, hey, this is something where Black men need to actually deal with. You need to deal with the fact that you're not the head of your daughter's family. If your daughter is grown and your daughter is married, you ain't the head of her family. If they want your advice, you can give them some. And truth be told, you should be really advising your son-in-law. And realistically, Your daughter shouldn't even be in the room. Let's keep it real. Your daughter shouldn't even be in the room. If you're advising your son-in-law, you still also have to understand your son-in-law ain't got to agree. You can try to help him and give him stuff that may help him in his marriage, even to your daughter, but your son-in-law trumps you. Yeah, let me say that again for y'all, because I know that can be rough right there, y'all. I know that part can be rough. Your son-in-law trumps you. If they have their own life, they lived in their own home, you may see your son-in-law do some stuff that you don't necessarily agree with. You don't even address that in front of your daughter. Now, you can talk him to the side or whatever. I ain't even saying you got to pull him to the side. At some point when y'all are not around the women, y'all can have a chat. Your daughter shouldn't even be in the room. And you can say whatever you disagree with. But what you said don't count until your son-in-law says it counts. Now, I get that can be rough because when you're an adult and you've been controlling things for a long time, you know, and you can see this on a regular basis with like old people. When there's certain old people who can't really get along in life anymore on their own, and what happens with a lot of those old people, they have to, well, control is turned over to their children. I'll say it like that. Control is turned over to their children. Now, some of them will voluntarily let let control go, but most of them will not. And the last thing a lot of old people want to do is listen to their children, because that just ain't what they used to. They've been telling you what to do your whole life, so they got decades of telling you what to do, and now all of a sudden they got to listen to you. It's a few of them out there. It's a few of them out there that'll let that control go, but most of them ain't gonna just let it go without a fight. You're gonna have to fight your parents at some point in time. Well, there's also some transitioning that we have to face when our daughters get married and go live with their husbands. They come by to visit. You may not like how your son-in-law treats your daughter, but it don't make no difference. That's his wife. He trumps you. You ain't got the joker no more. Okay? Now, you can still be in your daughter's life. I ain't saying you can't be that. You can be a quote-unquote ace of spades, but he the big joker. Your son-in-law is the big joker. He got more say-so over your daughter than you. And there's some men who haven't been taught that because you've been raised by women and you don't get it. You want respect, but you don't want to respect another man. That is crazy work right there. Okay? Those are the type of things that show you really don't understand life the way you need to. Okay? And I know this could be a much bigger problem with men who are raised by women. You want men to respect you, but you don't want to respect other men. Bro, once your daughter is married, that's her husband's problem now, not yours. Now, if they going through something, okay, and things could happen, they going through something, maybe your son-in-law comes to you for some assistance or some help. Guess what? That's between y'all. That's what that is. That's between y'all. Now, I'm not saying the son-in-law didn't already discuss it with his wife. They could have, but she don't need to know what you said, and you don't need to know what she said. The only thing you really need to be dealing with is what's going on between you and the son-in-law. That's it. So when this woman is making the claim she was making in this particular video about, you can always come home, but depends on what the context is. That's what's supposed to happen. Should be depending on what the context is. Now, that statement she made that hit home to her, they treat my they treat my diamond like glass. Now, I understand why she liked that, because in her mind, that puts her in a certain position. Okay? Well, I'm a diamond. There's value in that. Okay? And they treat my daddy's diamond like glass. Now, I can totally get how any father could like listening to that. Okay, I can totally get that. Okay. But at the end of the day, once your wife get married, that ain't your diamond. That ain't your diamond. And you may have to actually deal with the fact that your daughter wasn't nothing but a piece of glass. All right? Because we talking about married folk now, y'all. We talking about married folk. You can have all kinds of opinions about stuff if your daughter is living with you. And this is something fathers got to know. If your daughter living with you, you can have opinions about all kinds of stuff. All right? If she living with you. But once she grown and gone, and I'm not saying she should be gone before she get married, because what's out there for her in the streets? You know, because there's a whole lot of hard dick and bubble gum, as they say, out there in the streets. So I'm not saying she should leave your household before she gets married. But if she's not a part of your household, that ain't your little girl no more. I know in your heart that's gonna always be your baby girl. I'm not gonna argue any man about what's going on in his heart about his daughter. In your heart, that's gonna always be your baby girl. But in real life, she ain't. Okay? If your daughter in them streets, your daughter in them streets. It is what it is. Now I know with today's language, they may not sound so good, but it is what it is. If your daughter in the streets, then your daughter is in the streets. All right? If your daughter is accepting glass treatment, you may see her as a diamond, but she ain't that. She's glass because she's allowing glass treatment. You know, however you break that down in your mind, your daughter is accepting glass treatment because that's how she sees herself. Just is what it is. That's how she sees herself. Now, I understand you want her to see herself as a diamond. You only got so much time to make that happen while you're raising her. Now, if she's an adult, you can keep trying to talk to her and things like that and help her along the way. But what she sees herself as, that's what she is. You know, you are what you see yourself as. You know, and I'm not just talking about it because especially with women, there's a lot of them, they'll say they're greater than what they are. But if you actually are the great thing you say you are, you're going to have corresponding behavior. Okay, y'all, you're going to have corresponding behavior. Now, I do something that some people believe is truly arrogant. You know, if I'm talking to people about certain stuff, I'm going to tell them I'm the best. Now, why am I going to tell them I'm the best? Because that's how I want to be seen by other people. But I am also willing to put in the work so I can become the best. Now, somebody might actually be better than me. Okay, somebody might be better than me at some particular thing, but I'm going to say I'm the best and I'm going to do everything I can to become the best, you know? And if you're not an evil person, a lot of times you can challenge the person who's best at something and y'all can actually create a friendship and have healthy competition, which does what? It makes you better at whatever thing you're doing because you're getting far more exposure to the best person who does what you do. You know? Now, that's what I've done for a long period of time. You know, when I went into jobs, I told people in the beginning, no, I've been the best at what I do. And now that I'm coming to this job, I'm finna be the best one here. I tell people in the beginning, I'm finna be the best one here. Now, people do have certain reactions and things like that. But if you come off as a likable person, which I always remember to be a likable person, a lot of times that's just fast track you to a relationship with people who are far better than you. And now you get to get with those people. And shout out to Trail Bentley, just like he said in the chat, iron sharpens iron. So I don't even have to go through getting iron sharpened by people who ain't really that good. A lot of times I get placed with people who are far better. And I just start, trying to catch up to them. Now they gonna cut me some slack because I'm new. So I ain't got to perform as good as them, but everybody knows my goal is to simply be better than everybody else. And I don't see that as too big of a problem, you know, and truth be told, people who are really good at something, when they understand that they're great at something, Matter of fact, I'm gonna ask Chef Mike on the spot. Okay, I'm gonna ask Chef Mike on the spot. Now I ain't never talked to Chef Mike about this. I'm gonna ask him on the spot. Now if he don't want to answer, that's on Chef Mike. But Chef Mike, one thing we know about you, brother. One thing we know about you. You are an incredible chef. Okay, you at a world class type level. You're an incredible chef. We know this about you, chef. This is not a guess. We know you an incredible chef. Chef, if you meet a young man who wants to be the best chef ever, and he's likable. Now, y'all got to remember that likable part. Because if you come off as arrogant and all that type of stuff, it's going to hit different. So you got to remember that likable part. But chef, just for argument's sake, when you meet a young man who wants to be the greatest chef ever, but he's an extremely likable person, he's never disrespectful, you know, he shows you that he wants to put the work in to be what he says he wants to be. Whenever it's time for him to learn something, he's not only is he on time, he's 15 minutes early. He take whatever instruction that you give him as if it's biblical. You know, do you want to help that man become the greatest chef he can be? Or do you have a natural competition to hold back with that guy? Are you going to help him be what he say you want to be? Or are you going to try to hold back on the dude? Honest question, chef, if you don't mind answering. Honest question. Now, you can answer in the chat. You don't have to come up unless you just want to. That's on you. You can answer in the chat. But if a young man is respectable to you, you know, he looks up to you in the right way. He says he wants to be the best, but he know you better than him. And he respects you as a great teacher. Does that not make you want to help him even more? Just for argument's sake. And why Chef makes a response if he has time to make a response, because sometimes Chef goes in the meetings, y'all. We can't get him all the time like that. So if he does have time to make a response, we'll see what it is. But until that point, I'm gonna go ahead and grant the mic over to one of our favorites here, Black Uru. You got the mic, my brother. How you doing?
Hey, Roger, how you doing? I hope you're doing well. I hope folks in the chat are well. Wow, you know, as I watch that video that your link referenced to your description, I was cringing while watching that video because it provides so much of the pretext and the background and the explanation for why we have so many problems today. A lot of faulty programming that backs up a lot of the sociological and psychological precepts behind a lot of what we operate on today were exhibited in that video. You know, that video is like what 27 years old. I think it was 98, right? So there was something, yeah, 27 years old. So we're talking about more than a generation back. And so the women featured in the video were, I don't know, boomers. Maybe that first woman was even like a silent Jen, you know, in terms of generational, you know, because she looked like she had a few miles on her, and she looked like she might have been old even for 27 years ago. So that might have put her in the silent Jen. I think silent Jen is up to 45. You know, anyone who's born like 45 and older would be silent Jen, and then I think like I don't know. I won't go any back further than that. But a lot of what was in that video, it's interesting. The black females, and I'm kind of rambling because I'm sort of remembering parts of the video that really stood out to me. But the black, of course, female psychologist that was featured in the video said many disturbing things. But maybe the most disturbing thing she said is something that's going to be all too familiar to us. And forgive me if you've already noted this, Roger, because I haven't had a chance to listen to everything you presented today. Do you recall her saying during the second woman or daughter, where they're
Mm-hmm.
talking about how her father working a lot, was working a whole
Yeah.
lot? Do you
Yeah.
remember the psychologist saying that basically her mother, her married mother, was basically a single mother? Do you remember her saying that?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Shout out to Michelle Obama.
And Michelle, that was So you got a guy who's probably working 60, 70 hours a week to take care of his family. And that woman had the nerve to say out of her mouth that her mother was basically a single mother. Well, I mean, of course, I mean, and you know, this is the kind of language that a Michelle Obama, because this is 27 years ago, so Michelle Obama, 27 years ago, still a fairly young woman, what, 30 in her 30s? This is the
Mm-hmm.
kind of language and sociological input that they're receiving, that a man is working hard to take care of his family, and apparently, unfortunately, worked himself into becoming alcohol dependent, which no empathy for that at all in that video. You know, no connection at all. Yeah, this guy's working 60, 70 hours a week. At some point, he probably is reaching for something to kind of, you know, balance out his mental and emotional state at that point. No empathy at all for that. It's all, well, my dad was here, but then he stopped being there. He became a drunk, so I didn't really care for him anymore. And it made me scared of all black men in general. I mean, I'm listening to this shit and I'm like, wow, this is exactly why we're here right now. So, I mean, I could just kind of ramble about all of the, I would say, psychological and sociological maladies that were revealed in that video, and were not at all viewed to be such. But I'll give my opening statement.
And you know what? You said a mouthful, but you definitely on point. You know, it just made me think of the Dr. Dre song. Who started this gangsters? I'm gonna say stuff, and it's the mother effing thanks I get. You know, so yeah, he out there possibly working his job and a part-time job, possibly two jobs based on what they talking about. And the thanks he gets for doing all that is you left your wife to be a single mother. That's the thanks you get, y'all. There you go. We appreciate nothing of you. We appreciate nothing. There you go. You left me to be a single mother. Okay. Yeah, that was just wild. That was just absolutely wild. Now shout out to Chef Mike's Roundtable, who gave us his honest answer, y'all. When I asked him about the young man who wants to be the best chef ever, Chef Mike says, I'm going to mentor him and help him reach his goal. What I'm looking for as a return will come as a byproduct. Shout out to you, Chef Mike. See, no hating going on. As long as you come in likable, if you say you want to be the best, people gonna help you be the best. Now, that's more of an attitude that men take toward things. You know, we want to help each other prosper. Now, what's going on in this show? This edited piece of work? I don't know what they was really trying to push if you're looking at it like this supposed to be very positive for black people. I don't know what they was trying to do if this was supposed to be like, we come watch this show. I think, what was it called? Basic Black. Like this supposed to be something to help us be a better people or something. At least that's how it was presenting. I don't know what they talking about when I start hearing these women talk. And that other woman, and I'm gonna just go and get it out the way. She made a statement saying that her father sexually abused her. Okay. Now I've heard a lot of women make sexual abuse claims, and I'm gonna tell you, the vast majority of them I do not believe. I probably don't believe in too much of any of them, truth be told. You know what I'm saying? But when you say it's your own father, because she didn't make no distinction that it was a stepfather or something like that. She said her own father sexually abused her. Now I'm gonna tell you that ain't the most incredible statement that was made to me. And that maybe somebody heard that and that was the most incredible statement made in that whole show to you. No, the most incredible statement that I heard in that entire show was that he stopped on his own. Nobody made him stop. There was no crisis ever presented. He didn't get arrested. Nobody went to jail. He just sexually abused his own daughter, and under his own volition, he just stopped on his own. That was the most incredible thing I heard. The fact that she would even claim that he stopped on his own, and that was just it. And I'm telling you, for me personally, saying that totally invalidated everything she claimed. What sexual predator stops on his own? Ain't never heard of that one. Ain't never heard of that one. Okay. I've heard some people say they found Jesus, and I couldn't do it no more because I wanted to please the Lord. I've heard that. I've heard people get the hell beat out of them. And they said, I stopped because somebody's going to hurt me if I continue to do it. I get that. And then, we got people who've been to prison. So therefore, they had just been placed away and they just didn't even have access to do it again. But just stopping on your own? How you going to be sick like that? Where you going to sexually abuse your own, not somebody else's kid, your own daughter, and you just stop on your own? Now, I understand this is a girl at the time, and she's claiming she remembered this about her father. So I just took it as they grow up lying. They grow up lying. Do I believe her story about her father? No, I just absolutely do not. I just absolutely do not. Because your own father molested you. You basically kept it to yourself because you didn't even say nothing about telling nobody or anything like that. He had no repercussions. He had no repercussions. Or I mean, and I get it, y'all. It could be some fancy editing, but based on how this show was being presented, I don't think they would edit out a bunch of bad stuff happening if it's gonna help them put across the message that they want. Because I didn't see this as a show trying to put off any kind of real positive message for Black people. I think it presented as a positive show for Black people to watch, but the goal was to put out bad messaging. That's what I get from this show. The goal was to get y'all to buy into bad messaging. Okay, Black men are terrible.
Well, let's summarize what we got of the fathers. We got one father who's presented to be a positive, but he's basically kind of a man-hating. I mean, if you listen to what she described of men, her father basically hates other men, distrusts other men, and basically raised them up to in no way be functionally, to be functional wives to men. And if maybe I don't recall, or tell me if I'm wrong, but I saw what looked to be a woman who was, again, well into her middle years, if not older, had not said anything about a husband, didn't say anything about children, and tell me if I'm wrong, right? Please, because
I ain't heard you say nothing wrong yet. I ain't heard you say nothing wrong yet.
So this is a middle-aged woman from a successful family. I think she said her father was a judge. Successful family, married, apparently her intact family. But she herself apparently never married, never had any children, had, by her own description, somewhat strained relationships with men. And her father had not at all really sort of trained her to have productive relationships with men. So you got that father. Second father is a absent drunk, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then the third father is a molester, an incest child molester. This is the report of black fathers and daughters. What's the objective of this report? what was the point of? What was the thesis of this report?
And you know what else, Black Guru? You know what else they didn't do? And if y'all been around, because I know at least some of the audience here has been around long enough to see how this stuff go down. Now, if they was trying to do something positive, remember how they used to put like a phone number at the end of the show or something like, if you're having problems with such and such and such and such, dial this number. There's a hotline and people waiting. We didn't even get the hotline at the end of this. It's all bad and ain't even no hotline number. You know, I don't know what the goal of this show was in any positive way.
Well, I mean, it's basically presenting that, all black fathers are fucked up, and there's, you got one of just very few options, and they're all going to be fucked up, and it just seems like to me the whole thing is kind of like a cope for having terrible black men as your elders. I mean, if you look at it earnestly, they're not going to give you there's no cure for having fucked up black men. There's no light at the end of the tunnel or rainbow over the bridge or anything. The black men are just fucked up. Yours were fucked up, mine were fucked up, all of ours were fucked up. So just live with it. Just be this valiant martyred black woman, because that's what came out of it. That you got to endure these terrible black men, these terrible black male elders, and maybe in the end you'll come out okay. Probably not, but maybe.
Well, you know what I would say, Black Girl? I seen it as a good attack for well-to-do black men, because I grew up poor. You know what I'm saying? I done told y'all that. I ain't come from the nice neighborhoods and all that. I ain't come from that. You know what I'm saying? So we ain't have money like that. My people don't have money in the background. We just getting money, okay? So, we grew up in some bad neighborhoods and whatnot. Our parents did the best they can. My folks come out of slavery, both sides of the family, okay? So what I saw was that, hey, if you have hope for getting a good black man, I know y'all probably think it's some bad black men in these neighborhoods y'all live in. Y'all probably done heard something about a bad black man down at the pool hall. You probably done heard about the bad black men standing on the corner drinking and whatnot. But guess what? Hey, ladies, if you get you a good black man who is well-to-do, who is established, who gets a great job, has a good career, even if he went to college, even if he becomes a very accomplished man, them niggas ain't nothing either. And I want y'all to know, beyond a shadow of doubt, it's not a theory. Even the quote-unquote good guys that's out here getting money, them niggas ain't nothing either. I think that's what the messaging really was at the end of the day. The better man you get, the worse he gonna be. So therefore, there is no better black man. That's what it seemed like to me. And again, there was no hotline. It was nothing about if you struggling, if you've been through sexual abuse, call this number. If you went through domestic issues, call. They didn't even do that. So I don't know where anything from a positive perspective was supposed to come from this. Now, I am gonna say I had the idea this morning, not a little bit before we started the show. I said, let me just see what names pop up first. So of course, when they start popping up the name like a producer, executive producer, y'all know who the first two names I seen was, right? Women. Names that sound just that I would assume are very much black women. Okay. And because you got the man hosting, and I was sitting there thinking after seeing this episode, I was like, why would a man be hosting this? Now it could be something that was coming on once a week, you know what I'm saying? And so therefore you got a guy. But I was just sitting there like, why would you have a guy host this, put this out here, And what does he have to do with the information? He didn't actually make contact with anybody. He didn't talk to nobody. He didn't even talk to another reporter that talked to them. Like, there was no connection whatsoever. So I'm like, well, you know, this is, and I'm gonna say it like this. I know television is controlled by white people. So at the end of the day, you don't get to air nothing that white supremacy don't approve of. Just is what it is. So I was like, okay, well, who put this messaging out there? And, you know, it just seemed like they were black women. Now, I can't tell you for sure because they ain't show no pictures of the ladies. But the first ladies I saw, you know, executive producer, whatever, black women's names. So then, of course, it made sense to me.
Well, I mean, to me, it also, what stood out was, you know, they had this black female psychologist or psychiatrist. And let me tell you, don't you dare, don't you in life ever deal with a black female psychologist, psychiatrist, sociologist, any sort of soft science, particularly pertaining to your individual business as a man, as a black man. Don't you dare deal with any black woman of any. I rank them just maybe slightly above, if not in some cases outright equal to how lowly I view black female attorneys. Just about maybe slightly above, but maybe even not necessarily even above. Those are some of the most destructive females to black men on earth. They wield vast power over both individuals. They influence the law. They influence government. And they take the position of representing the interests of black people by virtue of them being black, when almost every time they're selling the black feminist, black female perspective in everything they're doing. And we saw that on that video.
Yeah, she was I'm pretty sure she was a delight to a lot of white supremacists out there as they watch her talk. But I mean, she was just terrible. She was literally terrible, y'all. And I'm gonna say, because I mean, you brought it up, Black Rule, but that whole thing about, you know, we gonna say is, and y'all, we got to think about this. 97 too, y'all. This is 97. You know, this is Civil Rights Act was signed in 64. This is 33 years later. You know, black folks starting to get a little money in their pocket, and the response to black people getting some money in their pocket, if that nigga working, he doing you wrong. Because he working. And he not only working a little bit, he working a lot. Why? So you can live a more comfortable lifestyle. But now you wrong for trying to put your family in position so you could, quote unquote, keep up with the Joneses, at least a little bit. Or just not have to have a dirt floor or something like that. You actually live maybe in a city area and you got a nice apartment. Why? Because your daddy breaking his back to provide where y'all can be safe and in the house. Okay? You ain't got to share a bathroom with half the people in the building. Your daddy doing stuff to make you good. And the reward you got was your daddy's a terrible man and he don't love his children. You know, your daddy goes to work, he comes home and don't really participate with his kids. When has that ever been true in Black America? Let's keep it real. The highlight of a child's day is dad getting home. Because dad gonna play with him. It is what it is, y'all. Now, y'all can say whatever y'all want to say about the mamas. But why do children love it when they daddy get home? Because daddy gonna give them attention and daddy gonna play with them. Now, I don't know if mama played with them. Some of them will play some of them won't. But daddy gonna play with his kids. That's just what it is. You know, how many times I've went to parks and whatnot and I seen a bunch of fathers out there with their kids, I can't even name you. Okay? I'm going to tell you real talk, though. I don't have a lot of memories. I ain't going to say that it never happened, but I sure don't have a lot of memories of mamas with their kids. When I saw mamas with their kids, it was like little kids getting pushed around in strollers. I ain't never go to the park, and I don't remember any mamas out there with their children. No, I don't remember none of them. I'm just keeping it real. I'm not saying that to present a certain way, but I literally do not remember any mother out there with a child that was big enough to go to the park and play. I don't remember that. Okay. Now, granted, I wasn't at the park probably when there were small children. So maybe I missed the mothers with the little kid playing on the monkey bars or something like that. You know what I'm saying? When I was going to the park, when I remember stuff, we was old enough to do stuff. So, you know, I ain't talking about toddlers. I'll say that. I'm just not talking about toddlers. I'm talking about somebody older than a toddler. I'll give some women some credit out there. Maybe they was out there with the toddlers or whatnot, and I wouldn't remember that like that anyway, because I would be a toddler myself. So I wouldn't remember that. But I'm saying when I got older and I was going to the park and we went to the park regularly, I just didn't see no mamas out there with their kids. And I didn't think nothing of it because for me, that's what dads do. I didn't think nothing of it. I didn't have no mind state where I could say, well, comparatively, my father's out here, but the average woman probably ain't married. So women should be at the park with their children. Like I didn't do that. I'm just a kid going to the park to play. But as I look back on it, I just don't remember no mamas even taking their kids to the park. They don't have it doesn't come off that they have interest in their children like that. So when somebody says, a black man don't pay no attention to his kids, I find that extremely hard to believe in the first place. And it's downright insulting. Real talk.
Well, part of the problem with that video though is it's presented as being a report of fathers and daughters. But we don't hear from any fathers. We only hear from daughters. So it's not even, it's a fallacious presentation of what it reputes to be. It's about daughters either mostly complaining about their fathers, and even when it congratulates the fathers, it's this hatred of other men where the father's got to prepare you for the failures of all the other men that you're going to encounter in life. So it's not a report at all about fathers. So when you describe this issue about to what degree fathers participate with their children or play with their children, well, we're not hearing the father's side of anything. So yeah, it could be complete and total lies. We don't know. All we hear is some child, some woman or whatever perspective of that.
Yeah, and I gotta say, even from a child's perspective, it still sounds especially sick because they're not talking as kids anymore. I'm remembering my childhood perspective. When you are an adult woman, whether she realized it or not, and you are admitting that you was jealous or mad at your brother for having a relationship with his dad, like, how old do you have to be to understand there's a new kid here and dad got to give the other kids some attention too? How old you need to be to get this? Because I understand a little kid being jealous over the new baby. That happens regularly. I get all that. She talking as a grown woman and she still got beef over the fact that dad threw the ball with his son. Like, when you gonna get over this? He can't just ignore his other child because you exist. It makes no literal sense at the end of the day. And they put that out as if it's a real thing that women should like attach to. That was like a super dumb thought, if you ask me. That was incredibly stupid. And she should be ashamed of herself to even say something like that in public. That you still mad over the fact that your brother got some of your father's attention. What you think he's supposed to do? Ignore him? But Jado is here. So let me let Jado have the mic. You got it, my brother.
Hey, good morning, Roger. How you doing, bro?
I'm doing fantastic, brother. Doing fantastic. Bobbing and weaving, trying to get through these hoes, talking this nonsense about their dad. Well,
Great, bro. Yeah, man. Salute to everybody in the chat. My 2 cents, man. I gotta really check myself sometimes because when I hear Black women talk generally, black women specifically talk extensively for any extended period of time, man, a lot of times I be tuning them out, man. I really, yeah, I don't be listening intently, bro. Like, it's like, but I did my best with the link you put in, bro, and I, put it on 1.5 speed or 1.75, one of the two or whatever. So I might have missed a little few things, but salute to you. To good morning to you, Black Guru, as well, man. You said some powerful things. I didn't hear the entire show, but I found, just in my time on this earth, man, I found like especially Black women when they pursue these fields, these like in sociology, psychology. Let's say I'm saying stuff like even like correctional officer. They have a bone to pick. they're trying. They enjoy seeing they enjoy seeing black men in pain, man. In some sense, man, they kind of get off on that, or they feel ever so powerful over those black men, man. They feel like I think they pursue those things with that in mind, in some sense. I mean, again, it may be subconscious, or whatever. It may be conscious too. But when I watch this stuff, man, what I found, man, that a lot of women, Roger, you were talking about how you you don't quite believe all the women that talk about this sexual abuse when they were younger and stuff, and I'm right there in the boat with you for the most part. Again, it doesn't happen. I'm pretty sure it does, but to the rate that is reported or people these women are saying, it doesn't happen at that rate. I don't think a lot of these women, man, they develop a whole bunch of character flaws and stuff like that, and they go back and reverse engineer their life to fit to justify their character flaw, to fit their character flaw. So if she grows up to be a klepto or something, she'll say, yeah, my father used to teach me to steal when I was 3 or something crazy like that, man. Or yeah, she's a hoe or whatever she's having, being very promiscuous or whatever, and you should say, yeah, someone, my somebody sexually abused me as a kid. Again, does it happen? I'm pretty sure it does, but to the rate that they say it does, it doesn't, man. But yeah, man, I just kind of, I think you guys were saying what was the purpose of this thing, and I think it was saying, I mean, it is a attack piece on black men as a whole, and also I think it's like it kind of covers up for the women, the women that aren't so good too. So even black men, when you get a woman, you're interested in her, you're dating her, and you're like, man, what is wrong with this chick or whatever. And you can say, you know what? She had a bad black daddy, so I understand. And you kind of give her a pass. You know what I'm saying? So I think it's putting that message out there too, man. I found it very interesting. And just looking at that video from 1998, man, I couldn't really tell the difference if it was like 78 or 88. It looked like kind of ancient, just even being 98. I know it's not that long ago, man, but very interesting video, man. Black men, just be very observant when you see stuff like this, man. They sneak little things in, and a lot of times they can tap into our subconscious and affect our behavior and our decision making. And I'll end right there. Thanks for having me up, bro.
Now, shout out to you, Jetto. I'm gonna also say, if you closed your eyes and just listened to it, you wouldn't know what decade this came from. This could have been last year. Like, if you said they aired this last year, people would be like, "Yo, yeah, okay, I see it." So this stuff been going on for a long time, but I am gonna say it is a shame, if you ask me, that something like this was ever presented, because I know what them shows look like. I remember this stuff because, you know what I'm saying, I was a young guy back then, but I remember how this stuff was presented, and stuff like this was presented as like, this is supposed to be a show with some level of authority that really checks something out, and black people should really watch this and really intake what they got from this particular show, whatever's being presented here. It's called Basic Black, y'all. So this is supposed to be information for any basic black man, woman, or child. We should be engulfed in this particular show and have water cooler discussions about it and the whole thing. There was a whole lot of mess. I'm glad you pointed out the fact, Black Rule, you didn't hear one father say anything. You know, they ain't even have a recording of a father say anything. And you know, you may say, well, the fathers could have been dead, so you didn't get one woman with a father who's still breathing to say his side of the story. Like you couldn't do that. You know, we only get the dead
I
guy's
mean,
opinion.
why would you do a report about fathers and daughters and not, or at least it's presented as being about fathers and daughters, and not include any dialogue or any contact or any commentary from Black fathers? How can that be? What are you actually presenting here? What's the actual thesis of what you're presenting here?
And wasn't it presented in the fact? I mean, forgive me if I'm picking. It was like 60 minutes, like that whole program. And you know, people that was supposed to be a more
in a very authoritative way.
Yes.
It's presented in a very authoritative way. So you view it as being authentic and being sort of peer reviewed and being a very valid representation of Black fathers and daughters. And it's not that at all. They grabbed three Black women, and they all presented this very biased view of men that we hear nothing from directly.
And father couldn't get one sentence out. Whole episode, we couldn't get one sentence of a father. You know, which is crazy. Now, and my thing is, you know, there are a lot of psychological stuff that folks out here doing, because it was presented as father-daughter, but it was just a report about daughters and whatever their, and I'm gonna say sometimes made up experiences. Because women believe stuff for their own comfort. It's that simple at the end of the day. There's a lot of times I've talked to women and then they'll make up a story to somehow be a victim. I see them do this with people. They tell me about this stuff. You know, one of the main things I've tackled is women saying that they were physically abused and they talk like they're a victim. And I just simply ask them, do you got keys to the house or the apartment? And they keep saying, yeah. And I'd be like, why are you a victim if you keep unlocking the door so you can get in and lock yourself in with this quote unquote monster? Why are you locking the world out, but you locking yourself in with a monster? But I'm supposed to see that you're a victim in some kind of way. It don't add up to me, you know? And there's some women who don't like it when I say stuff like that. They think I'm being mean or whatever the case is. No, in my world, 2 + 2 = 4. It doesn't make a difference which way you count it. It doesn't make a difference what color the 2 is, what color the you know what I'm saying, the plus sign is, or it all equals 4 at the end of the day. So if you telling me that you are getting abused, but you are voluntarily going to the person to be abused, I don't believe you being abused. I think you just getting what you like. That's it. You know, and you know, like I said, that far-fetched story that some guy actually molested his own daughter, which is just crazy in itself, because you know, I did go through the trouble of looking into women being molested by their fathers and by their uncles and all this type of stuff, because that's what I heard, you know, all the time. And when I looked into it, it was always some man who was not a relative. It was a man approved by the mother. It was normally a man that the mother brought into the household. You know, yeah, Uncle Teddy was out here molesting the girls. You go find out what's going on. No, mama was having sex with some dude named Theodore. That's what happened. Theodore got brought into the household and Theodore was messing with the kids. Now, why mama picked the guy who messed with kids instead of just a guy that doesn't, when you can easily find men that don't mess with kids, hey, your guess is as good as mine. You know, but mama went through the trouble to find the guy that molests children so she could bring him in the house. So that's who Uncle Teddy was. It was just mama's boyfriend named Theodore something. You know?
Roger, you were like questioning the validity of her sexual abuse by her father, and which I question as well. Again, I'm not saying it's not true. No, I don't know, of course, but another thing that made me question it too, I think you said like the abuse just stopped, right? I think that's what
its own. Nobody did anything. Have you ever heard of abuse like that? Just stop it on his own. But go ahead. Go ahead.
No, that was a great
Well,
point. And
I have heard of supposedly, or you hear these women described at a certain point. And they're not always talking about fathers, and like I said, most times they're not. They're even talking about stepfather or something like that. But I have heard of this supposedly the abuse stopped when the girls reach a certain age. They're different kind of pedophile and pederast, which supposedly mostly pursue like young teenagers. It's supposedly different kinds of pre-adult molesters of children, and apparently there's some faction of them that only want to mess with children that are pre-pubescent or before they become teens. So I'm not, to the extent that can happen. I think that can happen. I think though what's missing from that story, assuming it's a legitimate story, is the fact that we don't hear any description of why it stopped. So we don't really. So then, to me, that just opens up questions about the legitimacy of the story in general. He got caught. I got too old. There's no explanation, which then opens up just a question about the credibility of the story in general. But there are apparently some who do stop because they only want children before they begin to reach puberty, for example.
Well, you know what, Black Rule, you bring up a good point, because that class of people does exist. Now, what really made her story shaky, because let's say her father was in that class of people. Number one, it's still shaky because he messed with his own daughter instead of somebody else's kid. And then on top of that, then she just kept on having this great relationship with her father. Oh yeah, that's just some stuff of the past. We just put that behind us and kept on going. So you ain't went to no counseling. ain't no significant thing changed in your life. The father was never addressed about this stuff. Just nothing. He just, oh yeah, I'm sorry. No big deal though. That was some old stuff. Let's just move on.
That's what I wanted to point out. Yeah, you guys that's a definite valid point. Yeah, just the fact that most people that are doing these things, I mean, they're gonna at least deny it or pretend it. Like he just said, "I'm sorry," so you kind of admitting to it and just let's move past it. I mean, that just doesn't sound right to me. Just I'm sorry and we gonna move past it. Oh, I did it. Yeah, you called me. Yeah, okay. Yeah, I'm sorry. Let's keep it moving. That just didn't sound right to me.
And as a victim, your perspective is it's okay. We just gonna move past. I'm the victim. I'm living in American society. This black man did all this stuff to me, and I'm just gonna let it go. Where? What city and state do y'all where a black woman just gonna let it go? Have y'all ever seen a black woman just let it go? Because the black woman I know still bringing up stuff like, well, you said you was gonna fix the washing machine 3 years ago, and it took you 6 months to call the guy over to do it. They still bringing stuff like that up when they have arguments with guys, and she just let it go.
And if I'm not mistaken, like she had a hyphenated name. I think it was the one that accused her dad of abusing her sexually. Didn't she have she had the hyphenated last name, right?
I can't say 100% for sure. I'm gonna go look it up, but I ain't surprised. Let me go make sure though.
So if I'm not mistaken, she kept her dad's last name and I guess hyphenated it with her husband's last name. So I don't know. You kind of, I don't know, man.
She loved her abusive daddy that much that she kept his name.
Yes.
Her daddy can't be trusted, but she want to know her husband. That's who I'm really submitted to, my daddy. Because it would seem to me that if you went through all that turmoil with your daddy, you couldn't wait to get your name.
That's what I'm saying. You kind of smacking your husband in the face as well, you know. I don't know.
Why would you have a daddy that molests you and not want to take your husband's name? That's what you know. Look, I just can't tell y'all people for sure I lying, but what I can say, it's stuff that just don't be adding up, man. You want the name of the guy who molested you as a child? You want to keep his name in adulthood when you don't really even have a reason to do it? It just don't make sense to me at the end of the day, you know? So people just say some stuff that just be so far-fetched, I really can't go there with them, you know? And some people gonna think, yeah, I'm just being mean, or you 2 1 sat. No, 2 + 2 still got to equal 4, you know? Again, one of the best pieces of advice that my father ever told me was that it has to make sense in the beginning, middle, and the end if it's the truth. I got a hard time believing stuff when it's just too many parts of the story that's being presented and it don't make sense, you know? So I don't know what these folks be on and why this was put together in the first place. If this ain't white supremacy at its best, I don't know what it is. You know, real talk, y'all. You know, this is actually,
to me.
Let me throw this question out real quick. Shout out to Kevin 3905. He said, "Did he walk her down the aisle?" That's a good question right there. Of course, we don't know, but if you say all that happened, yeah, did Dad walk you down the aisle after all that? All right, go ahead, Black Guru.
Well, I think the saddest takeaway from that video is, I kind of touched on it earlier, you know, it kind of explains why we are where we are right now. Because, you know, when you see and hear a lot of the dysfunction of today, and you wonder where it comes from, uh, and what is behind it, or how did things get to the state? When you look at all the misandry, when you look at the development of the Black Manosphere and Red Pill or whatever, what you see is a response to, you know, those women. Like I said, the women on those videos, those are, like I said, I think the first one might even be a silent generation, which would put her around somewhere around 80 or something like that today, because she looked to be well into her middle years 27 years ago. And then the others would probably they look to be 30-ish, so that would put them about 60-ish now. Maybe, so they're either boomers or maybe the eldest Gen Xers. So they are the mothers and grandmothers of the dysfunctional young women y'all encounter today. So they kind of show you why things are as bad as they are, because a lot of this dysfunction it has unfortunately has a fairly strong foundation, and you saw and heard some of that in the video, and you also see why it's almost impossible to get rid of a lot of it, because it is so deeply rooted.
Absolutely. And I'm gonna say shout out to my main man, No Placeholder. He hit me with the $5 cash app. He said supporting Black men media. Hey, appreciate that, brother. Appreciate that very much. Yeah, and the thing is, these ideas are very much entrenched into a lot of these young ladies, because these women here, this is grandma. Think about it, y'all. A lot of young ladies right now, you know, 15, 16, 17, this grandma. You know, if a lady is around 40 years old, this her mama. You know, so that's why the stuff's so entrenched. These bras still alive. Okay. They got all this nonsense going on in their heads, and these bras are still alive. So they spread their nonsense to their children. And you, if you're gonna say they're not spreading nonsense to their children, if these women got on television to say this, you think they ain't telling their own kids this stuff? You know, let's be realistic about it. You know, you see why one young lady, you know, saying, well, you know, I got this strong like for white men. I mean, I can understand that to a certain degree. Like, if you in a place where ain't number of white men around you, yeah, you gotta like somebody. So I can get that. But where did you even develop the disdain for black men like that if you weren't around none? You know, so like some stuff I just don't buy into what people be saying. You know, I get they saying they got this messaging, but we can't confirm that any father gave them this messaging about, you know, hate these niggas no matter what. Because that's really all they really saying. Even my dad was telling me, don't mess with these niggas. That's all they was really saying. You know, you can't trust these men. Why would your daddy tell you something like that? And if he told you that, did he give you some level of context at all? Or was this just a conversation on, hey, when you meet a guy, bring the guy to me so I can examine. Just don't take his word for it. Bring him around me. Because that's all it could have been at the end of the day. But see, her interpretation and the way she want to protect her own self-image is just to say, well, you know, my daddy told me don't trust these men. Now, I don't know if her daddy said that or not. He could have, you know, because, you know, honestly, to me, I just got a strange feeling that they mixed. And if you go up enough, you might run into a white man. You know, this could be a situation where this came down from the black woman that married a white man but had a son. I ain't gonna say that's the case, but that feeling just came over me as I was watching this lady talk. You know, so I don't think I'd be wrong. And I was like, man, okay, I want to see what her father looked like. But then when I saw him, I was like, okay, well, he mixed too. So I want to know who his daddy was. Real talk, you know. But to put this on now, I would bet money this probably came on Sunday night, 6 p.m. I bet money that's when this was aired. I have no actual clue. But matter of fact, I'm gonna just look it up to see if I can find it on Google or something. What time did Basic Black? Is that what it was called, y'all? Basic Black? Was that what it was? I want to see what time this aired, because when they put these shows out, they're definitely putting it in a position where you're supposed to really believe and accept everything they told you on these shows. And it's crazy. And this just is like a we hate niggas party. That's how I took it. We hate niggas. This why we hate niggas. And this why you should hate niggas too. All right. And I am going to look it up just to see, y'all. Good old Google. All right.
Well, the video, this, I don't know. I mean, you can't really call it a documentary. Whatever the hell it is, was done or was published in the 90s. I mean, that was kind of the heart of the hate niggas era, man. That was, the 90s. They were every day they were new reasons and new ways. They were creating shit. What didn't Waiting Excel come out in 97? Stella got a groove back, I think, in 96. So that was like
Yeah.
I think the DL book came out in 98.
That was like
so,
the crescendo.
All black men are on the DL.
Yeah.
The crescendo.
That was the nigga era, man.
Yeah. The 90s was hard on the nigga. I tell you.
Yeah, that was
the 90s was hard on the nigga.
Straight crescendo. Black man hating, man.
Yeah. Yeah, now I did look it up. It said prior to May 2024, Basic Black aired weekly on Fridays at 7:30 p.m. Okay, so it was one of those Friday shows at 7:30 p.m. I wonder if this was like a PBS thing or something. But so I guess this was for the people who wasn't watching Friday didn't always get the traffic. They that was like the worst day of television anyway, y'all. Just so y'all know, okay. you put your best show on Thursdays because everything else was supposed to lead up to your best show. But your best show was supposed to air Thursday night because people watch TV the least on Friday. So that was the easier time for people to get some on air if they didn't have a bunch of money like that. So, but there was a lot of stuff that was on that was supposed to be serious.
A show like that, I'd bet anything a show like that aired on PBS, I mean, here in Chicago area, we know it traditionally is Channel 11. It would, to me, without a doubt, would have aired on PBS public broadcast.
That's exactly what I was thinking. But everything on public broadcast is supposed to be taken seriously. The only thing that don't get taken as seriously is Sesame Street. The little kid shows, but you technically supposed to take that somewhat serious because they're supposed to be teaching your kids stuff about counting and reading and all that.
No, they got gay couples on Sesame Street now. So, maybe we should have been taking a little more. Maybe we should have been taking a little more serious. Didn't Bert and Ernie recently come out?
I heard something like that where they was gonna make I think it was Bert that they was gonna make him gay.
Come out? No, I thought they recently came out after 50 years. Came out as a couple.
Yeah, that was it. If I remember right, I think they was gonna make Bert well, it had to be both of them. Yeah, once one come out, the other one technically already out.
Can't just be definitely can't just be one.
They were right. They was always staring out of the window together. when they went, we only saw them from the top up. Was they wearing pants?
They had them free balling through half the episode.
And they wore a lot of bright colors, some colorful sweaters.
Yeah, well, I guess they want kids to take. I mean, just keep it real. They want kids to take stuff like that very serious. Like this is a normal, regular thing that you should be participating in. So why not put it on PBS shows? So that actually makes sense that they would have it on stuff like Sesame Street because they want the kids to take it seriously. So yeah, I mean, this was just a white supremacist wet dream. That's what I say. This was. I'm pretty sure there were more episodes just like it too, y'all. Just because it was called Basic Black. So this is basically how black people are. And that's the mindset that they're trying to push out to people. This is basically black people. And again, anytime you put something out there for black people like that, y'all know the white folks out there watching it too, because they be all up in our business. If it's some nonsense, they may not check that out. But if it's supposed to be serious, they just got to make sure that we okay and we ain't got too crazy and out of pocket. So I'm pretty sure they was watching this too. Shout out to serious.
This was still very much during the time of the crack thing and war on crime. This was Clinton. Clinton was president. This was the super predator. This was the Negro is the super predator era. If y'all don't, this was the commercialization of prison throughout the country. This was the heightening of. This was just post OJ, so this was also the heightening of domestic violence laws and regulation, and what's that? The Violence Against Women's Act. So you do this kind of programming in combination with all this other misandrous and particularly black misandrous programming, and it all becomes a part of this larger, lynch a nigger philosophy. And so it just makes it just so much easier to do all kinds of other terrible things to black men, because you got this crescendo of negative commentary and information coming from all angles, and in that video, everybody in that video, featured in that video was black. So then everything in that video. So if I'm a white racist, or particularly if I'm a white man who hates black men and wants to destroy black men, I'm going to use that video and all the negative commentary and programming reference in that video. I'm going to use that as a basis for creating or executing some harsh laws or administrative procedures or regulations aimed particularly at targeting black men because they're drunks. What do we get in that video? We got drunks. We got a negligent father. We got a sexual abusive father, right? We got don't trust them niggas father, right? So this is all being confirmed by black people. So like I said, if I want to come down on black men pretty harsh, I can use their own shit to do it.
Mm-hmm. I'm pretty sure somebody was teaching this in some that I'm pretty sure it was colleges out there presenting this on Monday morning or whatever day of the week it was on, and this was part of their class. Now this how these niggas operate, y'all. And y'all, it ain't just the niggas on the news. No. It's not just the little ghetto nigga. It's the well-to-do niggas too. Cause that's just how niggas are. You know, and I'm gonna say that if y'all look at the 90s as a decade, that was just an extremely hard time on black men as far as what the world was presenting anyway. They was always trying to find a way to make a black man look bad during the 90s. You know, yeah. When the Tyson trial started, you know, Rodney King got the brakes beat off him in what 91. You know, it was like television was really a thing. Everybody got it now. Let's really get on these niggas. You know, and it was just all kinds of stuff. You know, that was steady happening, and a nigga was just getting messed up all throughout the 90s. It was getting pushed super hard at the end of the day. So it does make sense that this type of stuff was also going on in the background. Now, I didn't watch it because, you know, I probably was too young I definitely wouldn't have cared about it this time because I think they said this was 97, 98. So I definitely wouldn't even be paying attention to that at that particular time. So it would have got past me even if it aired here in Chicago. But these type of things have been going on for such a long period of time. And I guess generally as black men, we ain't paid attention to it enough. And which is again one of the reasons that I keep saying, y'all, and I'm gonna always be drilling this one. Information is more important than presentation. Because this presents as something healthy for black people. It presents as something that should be good for black people. It presents as it's something that dealing with fathers and daughters. That's what it presents. But when you look at the information, all this is these niggas is nothing. Y'all shouldn't be around these niggas. And guess what? It's the 90s now, so some of these niggas are starting to do well. Well, if you get you a nigga that does well, this is what you signing up for. Now, see, y'all remember back in the 80s, we still had issues with it's so many black men who are unemployed and all that type of stuff. So black men been kind of getting it together since the 80s. So now you go into the 90s where they starting to do a little bit better. So now we got to tell you that even when a black man does better, he's still a nigga. You know, you can't take that nigga out of him, no matter what, even if he's a judge, which was a very prestigious position. I mean, it still is now at the end of the day. You know, if you think about where you're going to get the most prestige from, you know, doctors is always number one in America, lawyers number two. I'm pretty sure judge is pretty much up there when you think about it. You know, so even you presenting even the judge ain't no good. You know, you can have a great career. You could be a lawyer, which is a top career based on, you know, I'm just talking about the attitude people have toward careers because people always talk about doctors and lawyers first. So now you a judge. That means you was a lawyer and you got to the next level.
Well, no, I understand. The most powerful position, individual position in this country, you know, maybe outside of, you know, either, you know, Congress or the presidency, is a judge. A judge has more concentrated power than anybody. I mean, probably even more so than a doctor from the standpoint of they can make a decision and totally change your whole life immediately. Remove your freedom from you. It can overturn jury decisions. right? And other than other judges, and it usually takes a group of them to overturn your decision, because one judge cannot overturn one other judge's decision. It usually takes a minimum of 5 judges to overturn one judge's decision. A judge is your most powerful individual position in this country, outside of a very small group of men in Washington, D.C. Judges rule.
Yeah. And even when a black man becomes a judge, we want y'all to know he's still just a nigga. And here's proof. Listen to his daughter. But H. Revels has come up, so let me go ahead and let H. Revels get the mic. You got it, my brother.
Hey, hello to you, Roger. Shout out to you as the host, Black Guru, folks listening. I watched the documentary, and interestingly enough, it actually I had the idea that it was going to go from good to better to best, right? It went from okay to bad to worse. I mean that was the format they used, right?
I mean, yeah, technically, yeah.
Yeah, because I'm like, so if you're gonna have this thing about fathers and daughters, what you want to profile, you want to highlight good, positive relationships all the way across. There can be a bit of turmoil, there can be some struggle, but there needs to be but the overarching message needs to be positive. And it just wasn't there. I'm like, because when I saw, okay, this is good. Black people talking about fathers and daughters relationship. I'm like, okay, and it's interesting because the judge actually started off well, and then he started digging on black men. I'm like, oh man, because I heard you guys talking about it, and I got the same thing with that too. I'm like, why would you tell your daughter not to trust men, especially when you're sitting there modeling a good relationship with your own wife? You're doing well, so just model that relationship and just it's. He said, "Hey, come and see me. If you're interested in men, if you're dealing with a man, which is what you're supposed to do." But then he ruined it by saying, "Okay, but you can't trust these Negroes. You can't. So it's just the way he framed it. And the other thing too, he gave the women an out too. He said, "Look, if it all goes bad, you can come back to me." Like, no, you're supposed to stay with you're supposed to pick a good man in the first place, and you and him are supposed to work out your issues and problems, the minor ones anyway, to the point where you don't have to come back. I don't want you back here. Like, that's why I sent you over there to him. Like,
I put a lot of years into getting rid of you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, not sent you over there to him, but that's the whole point. That's one of the major points of having a husband, so you can stay with him and finish out your life with him. Because I'm not going to always be here. I gave you the at least 2/3 of my life, and you're going to get the end. You're going to get what's left until I pass away or until the father passes away. But you're supposed to spend your life with this man. So that's the whole point. It's just the way that he did it. I know he was trying to help his daughter, but it's just the way he was dogging on the men. And then we got the guy who was doing a good job, and then he started abusing the alcohol, and he said they said it was work and stress related. But when it becomes that to that point, I guess during that time frame, because it was the 90s, right? So people didn't really recognize and do the association with work stress, and then finding a coping mechanism that wasn't appropriate. We should have been there on that, but we weren't quite there in the 1990s just yet, where we are right now with that. So the answer would have been for him to cut back on his hours, or just transfer to a different job, or take a lower paying position, or something like that. So that way he wouldn't have so much stress, and he wouldn't have to use a coping mechanism that was abusive.
Well,
So,
but I mean, you're finding solutions, but we don't hear from him. So we don't really know his motivations at all. For all we know, somebody could have been sick with cancer or something, and he desperately had to work extra hours to take. It could be his mother or somebody outside of his immediate household or whatever. It could be all kinds of motivations that could have influenced that man. And so, but the problem with presenting it strictly from the perspective of a daughter, and you're a father, right, Kevin? You're father of sons and daughters. Your children have a very small view of what you've done through their childhood and why you did it, right?
Yeah.
They may describe you not being there for this and not buying that and not doing this or doing this for one of your daughters and not doing the same thing for the other daughter or son. And for them, it's the whole damn world. For you, it's you juggling dozens of responsibilities, right?
Yeah, it
And,
is.
and
Yeah.
that little thing for them is only a very small part of your responsibility. And that's the problem with presenting this so-called father-daughter picture without at all presenting giving the fathers a chance to present their view and perspectives of things. It presents a very warped and distorted uh, and biased view of black men, especially black fathers.
And I just want to say, real talk, I just don't even believe him. I don't know that man had a drinking problem. That man might have liked scotch after work, and that's it. He might have came home, drunk a scotch, and that might have been the only drink he had that night. Or he could have been drinking apple cider, and she just thought it was alcohol. Or it just never happened in the first place, and she just created a scenario in her mind so she can feel comfortable with the image that she presents of herself. I don't believe women like that, because when you start investigating their stories, and this is the thing, and I know most men do not, but I heard so many lies from women. I just started investigating stuff. Every time women would say something to me, I would just start asking them a bunch of questions about what was going on. Let me see it. Let me show me some proof. Is there somebody corroborate your story? And stuff was falling apart left and right. I don't think women be telling the truth in general when it comes to. And I've just been around women lying way too much to believe pretty much anything a woman says about a man without some type of corroboration. Because
I think that's another reason why they bring up sexual abuse a lot. And again, I'm not dismissing and saying that it doesn't happen, but that's supposed to be a taboo subject. And if you ask questions and it's supposed to be taboo. You ask questions, you want context, and then they're gonna get I mean, this is what I've seen in my own personal life, man. They're gonna get emotional, so you'll back up. So you're not supposed to be asking these questions, man. It's supposed to be taboo.
Well,
Don't touch this subject.
They polluted your ability to fairly analyze these claims.
Yes.
Where a woman could be 45 years old and all of a sudden she remembers some so-called molestation that occurred 40 years ago, and you can't even. How do you evaluate that?
Yes.
And if you dare ask questions and dare examine the logistics of what happened, you start researching what happened, and you find out the father was in Korea that whole year, when this was supposed to be happening in San Francisco. I mean, and it's like, well, how dare you question her truth? So it's insane.
And like I say, and I find that they reverse engineer this stuff. They have developed some real strong character flaws, and they'll reverse engineer it so that they can justify it.
So my thing with that whole program is that, so when you're doing a profile or a program like that, the idea is to profile the best father-daughter relationship, so that way, because the idea is you're supposed to influence other men to be better fathers, and overall, and especially as it relates to their daughters, if you're going to focus on that. So that would not motivate me if I'm looking at that program in series. I'm like, oh man, these dudes.
Well,
you see what I'm saying?
Adriel was thinking about it like this though. So you got to think about how people do twisted stuff. In their minds, that was the best representation, because at least the men had decent lives. It wasn't dudes in the ghetto. It wasn't dudes in the hood. I think that was part of the message that they wanted to get across. Even if you have a black man that quote unquote rises above and able to put himself and his family in a good position, they just like them other niggas. I think that was the actual purpose of it and the messages. So this is the best you're going to get.
Yeah, you could take it away. You could take that absolutely could be one of your takeaways. Because now if you're looking at it objectively and you're trying to put a positive spin on it, it's like, okay, I got to be a better father because I don't want to be these guys, right? But the thing is that But if that's what you want, then you're supposed to profile good men doing great things all across the board. So that way anybody can look at that. That guy who's not as active and doing what he's supposed to do across social classes, whether he's in poverty, working poor, or upper class, all of that. You're supposed to motivate these guys to be great fathers all across the board. And remember, the 1990s wasn't that far away from that. What do you call it? The 65 Moynihan report, right?
Yeah.
We weren't too far away from that. You still have people who still had some memory of that report and what it was about, and the degradation of the black family and all this other stuff. So that's what you're supposed to be profiling, and that's what you're supposed to be doing.
You're talking about what you think they should want to do. But and I don't know, because you were kind of in the military, so and I can understand why you may not be as acutely familiar with certain social things that were happening. But from my perspective, that video totally aligns with the overall thesis of the time, and that is to in every way present black men, especially black fathers, and especially any position that you have in relation to children. That was a part of a very popular and consistent message that in every way we're going to taint or to denigrate or to disparage black men, especially black men and fathers. So, I mean, while you might have a view of what you would have wanted it to be, from my perspective, this was the Tupac era, the Dr. Dre era. This was all about finding some way to denigrate, cop killer. This was all about the scary black man. This was the 90s. This was the era of the super predator. This was all of that all together.
You actually do have a point.
If you look at it from that perspective, just let me finish. If you look at it from that perspective, and not what you would have wanted it to be, but if you look at it from the time period in which it was being presented, the mass incarceration and all of that, it perfectly aligns with all of that.
Yeah, and I just want to say real quickly, shout out to the series producer, Cynthia Johnson. Okay, that was the first credit right after the show. Segment producers, Cynthia Johnson, Danetta Madry. Okay, yeah, I ain't saying these black women. You know what I'm saying? I ain't saying I need pictures of them, but I'm just saying, y'all. Production assistants, Danetta Madry, Vanessa Milton, production secretary, Tiffany H, and then some more like an African name, possibly Owasu or something like that. But Tiffany is in front of that Owasu, so hey, maybe it was a black woman that hate niggas, but they don't count African men the same way. You know what I'm saying? So I don't know what that was, but you never know. Maybe that's not an African name. Maybe it's Jewish. Who knows? But I'm just saying, man, a lot of women names, it sound like they African American women as people think of African American people. So let me say it like this. Sound like some FBA women was highly involved in all this. That's what I'm saying. Sound like FBA women were highly involved. So I think they presented exactly what they wanted to. But go ahead, H. Rebels, you still gonna say something. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah, I was gonna say so Uru does have a point. Because as it relates, he did mention my military service, and the military is a bit isolationist sometimes, right? Well, actually, a lot of the times, and you're straddling two worlds, really. Most of your world is military. You still have your culture, your background, and what you grew up in. So I'm still paying attention to the overall culture. I'm still immersed in blackness, and so I'm watching all of this stuff happen on the periphery. And interesting enough, what you mentioned, Uru. That is around the time I started questioning why is everybody talking bad about black men and black fathers specifically. That's around the time I started looking at that. I'm like, what the hell, man? All I see around me are men of all races busting their behinds to be the best soldiers they can be, the best husbands and fathers they can be. We had some that screwed it up, but for the most part, that was the overarching message. And that in order to be a good soldier, you had to be better at everything else. You had to being good at one makes you better at the other, right? So that was the message that I was receiving, that we were all receiving. So I thought everybody was doing the same thing. But that's when I started investigating, why in the hell is everybody crapping on black men? Aren't we all doing what it is I'm doing? And I'm seeing all these other races of men do the exact same thing around me. And that actually drove me to do more research and kind of go more into history, and then actually, do a deep dive into why everybody's just dumping on us as a collective. That was around the time that I started doing it.
I kind of look at I'm looking at like the fictional and the nonfiction too. What would you gentlemen say the greatest? I guess in my mind, but what would you say is the greatest representation of black fatherhood that we've had over the last, I guess, 50 years? Is there anything you guys?
I'm saying, repeat that. What was, say the question one more time for me, please.
Who would you say would be the greatest representation of black fatherhood over the last 50 years? Is there anything you can get?
If you're talking about from a general sense, the average person is going to think of he could Huxtable.
Yes, that's exactly where I was going. And they retroactively destroyed his image. I know, again, that was a fictional character, even though he's a real father too, and I'm pretty sure he was just as good as he represented on TV. But they even went back and just sullied his name or whatever. You know what I'm saying? Even if that representation is looked down upon, like, okay, he was playing that on TV, but we know what he was doing in real life or whatever. So even his name was sullied, and then that was like one of the greatest representations of black fatherhood that we've seen.
Yeah, my whole criticism about the attacks on Bill Cosby is that if he was as bad as they say he was in the 60s, y'all should have got him then.
My thing is,
he should have never rose up to be the icon that we actually see today, because it's going to be hard for us to differentiate what you call it, separate the two. I'm still going to believe and go with what it is I've seen over the years versus, if he was so bad, back in the 60s and 70s or whatever, y'all should have got him then.
My
I'm not
thing
really trying to hear a whole bunch of negative stuff.
It's just a flat out lie. Wasn't no black man getting away with that stuff in that time period. It was just too racist of a time for any black man to get away with the stuff they claimed he did. So I didn't believe him in the first place. When people started examining those women's stories, they started dropping like flies because everybody was claiming stuff that wasn't even possible. Which is the same thing I think is happening in this particular episode. That you get. I mean, again, I still think the most amazing statements that happened in this episode was this woman who claimed her own dad sexually abused her, but he stopped for no reason. I don't believe it. I just don't.
And remember, that is very atypical of black American men. That's not something we do as a collective. We don't have the institutions.
That ain't even something we do. It's not even something we do as a small minority. Yeah. Anytime you hear something about a black child being molested, it ain't never her actual dad. It's never actually an uncle. It's always some dude that a woman liked to have sex with and brought him in the house. And that's real time. And I know that's what it is because I done did the research. I done looked it up. Every time I find out about these convictions, it's always somebody the mama was having sex with. Every single time. I didn't run into one incident where it was actually a family member abusing a child. Not one. So I have to accept women like to have sex with men that abuse children. That's a black woman thing. It's just part of their makeup. Just is what it is. It may not sound good, but that don't change no facts. So when they present stuff like this episode, where you just going out your way to seem like you making up stuff, and I'm saying it like that, y'all. I'm saying they going out the way, and it seems like they making up stuff because we didn't hear nothing from the other side. If you weren't making it up, how come you ain't got no statements from the fathers? How come no father was in the interview? If you was trying to be fair and balanced, why didn't you get some people whose dads are still alive? Because you might say, well, dad was dead by that particular point. Number one, I don't know that to be true because I don't know you, and I don't even trust what you say. And number two is you could have got some women to talk on there whose dads are still alive. If something needs to be confronted, why ain't you confronted? You talking about television at this time? There was no internet back then, y'all. We didn't have no widespread use of internet. TV was the major authority about what was going on in people's minds. So how come you didn't get any daughters and they actual dad where y'all can have some talks and some discussions and stuff like that? Why? Because you don't want the narrative challenge. You just want to put out what you want to put out. You know, shout out to Cynthia again. And that's all it is to it. Cynthia probably just hate black men. You know? Now, I don't even know what the series was about because she was a series creator. But I bet you we start going through that particular show, we're going to see a whole bunch of misandrous stuff on it. And I'm going to say this episode does seem quite misandrous if you're going to say all this stuff about black men and not even look at the other side of the fence. And a black man don't even get to make a statement, even though you're trying to present it as a father-daughter thing. That sounds real misandrous to me.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. I'm looking at this thing. I'm like, dang. And I'm like, well, shoot. I'm like, well, damn. I'm like, why would you pick these three guys and not, some outstanding? You could have picked anybody from three men from different socioeconomic backgrounds, but all good fathers doing great things for their daughters. See, that would have been the way to present that. But yeah, if the overarching message was at that time to dump on black men, then yeah, they accomplished the mission, because that's.
My thing about this though, my thing is this: you said they picked these three men. How do I know any of these men had a real problem? I don't got nothing from them. All I got is what somebody's making claims of, and ain't nobody got a police record to show for it.
Yeah. Oh, by the way, so that whole thing about the sexual abuse, there was a woman, and the father was still alive. He's still alive to this day, I imagine, at this point. But the mother convinced the daughters as a way to alienate the father that he had actually abused them sexually, and he never did. And this guy maintained this for years. It ruined the family, ruined the relationship between those fathers and daughters, and literally, and it was years later that the mother actually admitted that she had made the whole thing up.
Well, the thing is, she was backed into a corner. That's the only reason she admitted it. She got backed into a corner.
Yeah.
Women would tell you stuff if they're backed into a corner, and that stuff happens on a regular basis. And I'm gonna say it again because I started investigating that stuff. Every single time that some woman claimed that any family member molested her, and I'm talking about brothers, uncles, and dads. Every single time I looked into it, it was always some dude who was having sex with the mama. It was not a relative. Every single time. Real talk.
Yeah,
everybody who claimed it was family, it never was family.
Yeah, for your blood relatives, their instinct is more protective than harming you. It's gonna be overwhelmingly protective versus doing you harm, especially the men.
And so my thing is, with that being the record of black men, I don't believe this woman. This woman literally just made a story up about her daddy, her actual father molesting her. And we don't have no proof that this was ever a real thing. And she just claimed he stopped on his own. And she had a relationship with him after the fact for no real reason.
Well, I'll tell you this. So, again, doing a little bit of research on this is my criminology. So the 18 hours I got in when I was in college, right? My 18 hours of criminology. It's, how hard it is for those guys to stop. They can't. Most of them cannot stop. They have to be forced to stop. They have to be isolated. It's really something. I tried to understand it just because I was doing all this research and I was confused about it. I'm like, these guys can't stop. Most of them, when they start, they cannot stop. So it's one of those things that, well, you did it, and then all of a sudden you just stop for no reason. Those dudes, they don't stop. They do not stop. They cannot help themselves.
Her daddy amazingly molested his own child, not somebody else's, and then just stopped just cause.
Yeah,
no religious awakening.
There's no way you can convince me of that because again, all the research says these guys that do this, they cannot help themselves. They cannot stop. They don't. They there's something weird, something with them that drives them to behave that way, and they have to be. People have to be protected from them.
But that's why I'm stressing the fact that she didn't mention no religious awakening, no being sent to prison so you don't have access, no being threatened to be killed if you touch her again. Nobody jumping on dad to beat him up, to let him know every time he touch her, he getting touched. None of that happened.
No, they don't. The
But
boys
he
don't. Them
just
people don't
stopped
stop.
on his own, and she had a good relationship with him after the fact. So she let it go too. No reason to let it go, but she just let it go. She didn't have no religious awakening herself. She just let it go. The fact that she's saying he stopped on his own, and the fact that she let it go and had a good relationship with him after the fact, that is astronomical for those two things to happen, especially with the same people that's supposedly related to each other in this bad activity.
Yeah. On top of that, she said she forgave him. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, see, and people will say you shouldn't say black women be lying. If the truth ain't in you, what they got to do with me? You know what I'm saying? What that got to do with me? I don't believe nothing she said when it came to that. And you didn't present the father side of the story. So I know earlier you said it's a documentary, and maybe you can kind of take it as a documentary, but to me, a documentary is supposed to find out factual information and be looking to, present something that's fair or whatever, or even if they're going to present a narrative, I guess you can say it's a document because technically there's documentaries who do present a narrative. And I'm just going to say in this particular episode, obviously there was a narrative that they want to present it. And when I think about when this happened, to me, the narrative is black men are starting to do better now. Well, that wasn't the narrative. That's what they was deciding behind the scenes. Black men are starting to do better now. We need something to take these niggas down a peg. So let's present even black men who do better are still monsters. That's all I saw from this.
Well,
You
so
know,
it's presented in a documentary format, but it's not an actual documentary. It's something else. I don't know what I'm not a producer, but I would have to call it something else. Not looking at it and reviewing it and then just looking at the overarching message to dump on
what
black
what
men.
I'm
It's
just
not
gonna say
really a documentary.
the point of view is to me is clearly saying that it is like what Trail Bentley said earlier. You can take a nigga out the hood, but you can't take the hood out the nigga. That's all this was. Even if that nigga been out the hood for a good amount of time. Even if that nigga ain't visited for a good amount of time. He could have been out for decades, but they still gonna be niggas no matter what. He got a reputation to protect, but he gonna act like a nigga. His job would be on the line if this came out, but he gonna act like a nigga. So yeah, this was a bunch of nonsense to me. Real talk. Now I definitely see why it got done. If you ask me, I definitely could see it happening in real time. If I would have caught this when it actually aired, I could see all that. But at the end of the day, I don't believe these women. I believe you have women who probably participated in whole activity, and they are trying to construct stories to justify their whole activity. Real talk. Because especially that first one, that just well, things are just pointing at to me. I think she's the especially screwed up one. Can't prove it, but that's just where I would bet my money. Who's the worst one? Probably her. That first one. Even though I get how the stories got worse, I think that first one the worst one though. I really do.
Okay.
Well, this is why I'm saying, y'all, presentation is one thing, information is another. Nobody said anything to corroborate any story that was presented. They could have did something to corroborate at least one claim.
I'm wondering what the response was to that particular episode at that time. I'd actually be curious. I know when something bad came out about black men or black people overall, but black men specifically, usually black men responded in a way to say, "Hey, look, this is you guys are distorting the actual truth about black men here."
Let's think about that. How could they respond? This is television. This is 97-ish or 98-ish. Which one of those two?
Well, you would have people that would write in. You would have people that would do interviews.
The internet was just starting to pop back then.
Yeah, but
Let's be realistic. Inside of people's homes, internet was just starting to really pop.
Yeah, absolutely. But I mean, you would still have people that would kind of be on TV and say, "Hey, look, what would they call it? Like a response to, like an evaluation of basically a response video or a response interview."
Who
Yeah,
responds? No, I get you, but I'm just asking who back in the day used to respond for in a positive way for black men. Who was that person?
nobody really, and it was only a few. It was only a few, and you had to have big names associated with it.
Yeah, so that's what I'm thinking. Like back then, was there an actual person? And maybe I was too young that I don't remember it. Was there somebody who actually would do that we would recognize who was on television back then?
No, not really. The only thing that I can remember was I know black men did not like when Claudine came out. Black men specifically wrote in and said, "Hey, look," and they caused enough of a noise about it that now the show didn't come off the air, but they made enough of noise to be like that people were like, "Okay, well, we're gonna have to adjust this a little bit and not make the message so negative." And then the same thing with that show with Diane Carroll when she was a single mother. Black men did not like that either. So they were making enough noise, but black men were doing that as a group. But as far as who was doing it with the mainstream clout, nobody really.
Okay, well, so you mentioned two shows that didn't get pulled off the air due to black men's response.
Yeah, and even when black men responded, the response was, "So what? We still gonna go with it."
Well, that's what I'm trying to say. Yeah, so no, they didn't respond. They just kept on going. That's the reality of it. Their response was, we never asked you niggas. That was the response. We never asked you niggas. And that's it. And they just kept right on going. So yeah, there was no way in Hollywood or anything that was doing anything about this stuff. So that's what I'm saying. When you say what's the response to this when this aired, and now keep in mind, now I don't know what this was per se, quote unquote, but this was just one episode in a series that they did. I'm pretty sure the other episodes were somewhat close to this, or definitely had more elements of crapping on black men anytime black men were featured in an episode. Because maybe they had stuff where black men wasn't featured on a regular basis, or I ain't gonna say on a regular basis, but in every episode, because it is called Basic Black. Yeah. So this was some women who got together to present this as this is how generally black men are. The show is literally called Basic Black.
And if it's run by women, they're going to always elevate and portray the women in a positive way.
I'm just saying the names there, the names on the back end of this show sound like women's names. The person who started the series, Cynthia Johnson, that show sound like a black woman. I can't prove to you as a black woman, but it sure sound like a black woman.
So you know what you're actually advocating for, Roger? Balance. You know what I'm saying?
Well, I'm advocating for truth. I'm not going to even say battle. I'm saying truth.
So
I think they lie.
You have to have you obviously the truth, right? But there has to be balance with it. Like something that's produced by women that have a skewed view of men, and you don't have men involved, you're not going to have that correction in there. Because a man would have said, okay, so now you have to, if you're going to do this, you have to put the father in there so he can respond to it. Otherwise, don't do it. Right?
Well, this is the thing, and at least the person who put it up on YouTube put it up as 1998 special report, Black Fathers and Daughters. So if they called it Black Fathers and Daughters, which nobody made them do, that's the name that they picked, because I'm assuming that's the name that the people who produced the episode actually picked. Well, they the one claimed it was about black fathers and black daughters, but they didn't put no black father in there. So they was the ones lying.
Well, you went through most of the names as far as who contributed to the show, who directed, produced it. It's mostly women. So,
but you could have called it Black Daughters. You could have called it Women of Color. You could have called it a whole lot of stuff and not put Black Fathers in the title at all. You didn't have to put them in the title, but you brought them into the title, which you didn't have to do. So if you brought them into the title, because I'm sure the person who posted this online put this on YouTube, I'm pretty sure that person just copied the name of what they called it and kept on rolling. Because what would he care? He just putting it up so people can see it.
Yeah, that's a good channel, but I won't say the channel's name, but that's actually, they do a really good job of actually going back and finding old shows and obscure series that otherwise might not have been found, that you might not know about, that answers some of the questions as to what some of the issues and problems that exist today among Black people.
Yeah,
By the way,
but
they do a good job with that.
but my thing is, at the end of the day, whoever put the actual show together, they called it what they wanted to call it.
Yeah.
That's the issue. They called it what they wanted to call it. They didn't call it Black Women Speaks or nothing like that. They didn't want to say Black fathers and daughters. So once you put the Black father in there, and then no Black father gets to make any statement at all, now you doing what you want to do. And as I've said before, anything that has been edited, we have to accept, or we should learn to accept, this is exactly what they wanted us to see. Me, I do a live show, so you possibly may hear something that we didn't want you to hear. You possibly could see something that we didn't want you to see, because it's a live broadcast. When you put up edited stuff, no, this is exactly what they wanted you to see. This was an edited broadcast. Why mention fathers if fathers can't represent themselves? So this was a deliberate action. And the thing is, it's a very deliberate action. And if you look at the folks in charge, it's a very deliberate action by Black women. That's it. That's simple to me. And why would white supremacy kibosh this? Because let's keep in mind, you got you had to go through white supremacy to get this stuff aired. What white supremacists will watch this episode and not want to air? You know what I'm saying? If I'm a white supremacist, I can't wait to air this one. Which might be why he caught it. It might be exactly what happened, because it was a special report. So they probably aired this on the time that it didn't normally air. This probably did air on Sunday, y'all. Because remember, I did look it up and it said the regular time was Friday nights at 7:30. This probably did air on Sunday around 6 o'clock. I just got a real feeling in my mind that this got something to do about 6 o'clock on a Sunday. Why? So you can catch a whole lot of Black people at home. Think about what was happening in the 90s, 6 o'clock on a Sunday. People is off work for the most part, and people are at home, possibly getting ready to eat dinner. You still had some families who was even eating dinner together, or people getting together around the TV to watch something interesting. Yeah, this was great for us. Now, I can't prove that it aired Sunday at 6 o'clock. I'm going to Google and see if I can find out when it aired, but that might be exactly why this was a special report, because it probably aired on the time that it wasn't, not the regular time. I'll just say that. Probably aired when it wasn't the regular time. So, yeah, this is trash to me. Some Black women got together. They wanted to trash broadcast because they wanted to trash Black men. And, white supremacy signed off on it. Makes sense to me.
Yeah, that's supporting racism all the way. Yeah, I just don't. I could have had a low level critique of the first. I know you said the first one, the first woman and father and daughter profile was the worst one.
No. I think she's the worst woman. That's what I'm saying. I just get this thought in my head that she is the worst woman of the women. But go ahead.
Yeah, well, I could have had some low level critique of that, but then I would have had condemnation for, higher level condemnation for the second guy, who allegedly was abused alcohol, and then definitely the third guy. I'm like, well, doggone, these, you couldn't find no better Black fathers.
Well, that's because you believe them. I don't believe them. Yeah. I can get that if you believe what came out their mouth. I don't believe these men.
What is the point of profiling dysfunctional men if unless you're trying to send, unless your whole point is to send a negative message, which if that's your idea, if that's your mission, then that's what they did. Because I'm thinking a whole different way. I'm thinking the message you want to send is we need more positive fathers. So we're going to profile positive fathers and what they're doing, and we're going to debunk this narrative about black men being
What,
crappy fathers.
Age Rebels, what else could the mission be if not that? They put out exactly what they wanted to put out.
Yeah. Which is why you need men running that. Good black men running that, and that's the balance that I'm talking about, because men would not have allowed that to go. That didn't even go, and even if you got to go through white people in order to get to that, they're still not gonna let it get to that point. They'll be like, look, if you're gonna do that, then there ain't no point in doing it. See, that's where we'll shut it down. You know, it doesn't even make it to the air.
Well, they did what they wanted to do. You know, it was edited, so it was presented the way they wanted to present it. You know, and I think that's just something that black men just need to really start thinking about. What have you actually took in your life that actually came from a legitimate place, a real place, a place where they wasn't trying to skew everything against you? Because to me, it seemed like it's definitely here to skew you to make you an anti-black man person. That's what the job of this is, to make you an anti-black man person. Because we gonna show you some of the best and brightest black men, and we gonna highlight the fact they did just like that nigga down the street who hang out at the liquor store.
That would have reinforced the overall message that was, on the rest of mainstream media, the rest of mainstream TV. Maury Povich, Oprah, Ricky Lake. I remember watching those shows when I did have time, and I was like, okay, so there was a balance of, not all black men. Okay, so you saw other races of men, but I noticed disproportionately whenever it was something negative, it was black men, especially with Maury Povich. It was like black man after black man after black man profile, and every now and then a white man would pop in, the occasional Hispanic man, never an Asian dude though, never an Asian.
Well,
I kind of noticed that pattern.
You said that this was, and I see you AL asking for the link. You said that this would influence the overall general society, basically to be worse toward black men. Did that not actually happen?
Yeah. I'm telling you that's why I started like, well, why is everybody telling me right around this time, right around the 90s when I started, I was like, why is everybody dumping all over black men? What the hell?
Okay, well this is the late 90s. Did you see stuff get better for black men after the late 90s?
No, not really. No, it actually got worse.
So it did exactly what you said if this was to make mainstream worse toward black men. Well, that's what it seemed like exactly happened. Because we have the benefit of hindsight at this point. So it seemed like that definitely happened. Now I know that the 90s was definitely bad on black men, because I'm a young guy as a black man, but I still remember a lot of stuff that was going on during the 90s. Yeah,
I mean, I was watching a lot of, I'm still part of the black community at the time. So even though I'm focused military, I'm still on the periphery I'm looking at the crack epidemic. I'm looking at, the black man being profiled on the television. I'm looking at, especially on the nightly news. The only thing that's changed now is that black men have actually, most black men are smartened up, and there's not as much, you don't see them as much on TV now, profiled in a negative way. I'm actually noticing there's a shift in who's being profiled negatively, because I guess they've done it so much and they've got the message out, and it's so internalized now at this point that it's not necessary. So now they have to switch it up, and I'm sure that they got a lot of complaints about
that. That's a heck of a view. My view would be a little bit different. They just can't catch. They can't catch niggas messing up the way they want to present. That's the only thing I really believe it is. I don't think it's because of lack of effort on their part. I think they just can't catch the amount of niggas they want doing something screwed up the way they would like to.
Well, I would like to think that black men have smartened up.
We were never dumb. That's my thing. We were never dumb. We ain't never been a class of yahoos. It's
No,
always
because
been a minority of people doing the bad stuff in our community. And I'm saying that minority still stands. It's never been most of us. They just present it that way. So I'm saying I don't think we straightened up. I think we've always been who we were. It's just people highlight the people who dysfunctional.
well, then let me reframe that. Then I think what essentially black men got hit to the game as to what they were trying to do and the message that it was trying to be sent, and we started challenging people on that. So they had to curtail it, but the damage has already been done. Like the damage is there.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, you know what? We accomplished our mission, so we'll maintain it. We'll throw it out there every now and then, but you know what? We already did what we needed to do. Everybody's got the message.
I don't know if I just can't agree with them curtailing it. I just don't buy into that. I'm probably never gonna buy into that one. I think they just have not been able to get black men to look as bad as they want them to look. They just don't have the ability to do it at this point. Yeah. Curtailing it, that's like them making a decision, which I just don't believe they gonna make that. I'm pretty sure I'd be dead and gone before they make a decision to stop being so bad to black men. That's what I
I
personally
agree with you, Roger, but the problem is that there's too much pushback now. Like you could debunk a negative narrative in a few seconds.
We can, but most of the world ain't doing that.
I got you.
You know what I'm saying? A lot of times we look at what's happening in a small area, even over the internet, and it's because this is what we're accustomed to and what we do on a regular basis. But that's not what the world is doing. That's the way I'm looking at it. That ain't what I do is here for people Monday through Friday. You can get real used to this messaging, but this ain't what the world doing. That's why I'm doing it. I'm literally doing it because it's not what the world is doing. That's all I'm saying. Not that I'm disagreeing with you or anything for sure. I'm just saying my opinion of this. I'm not saying it's fact or whatever, but the world I see, what I do, they ain't doing. Yeah. But let me give it to AL since he done came up. AL, my main man, you got it, my brother.
Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah, we hear you fine.
Peace to the panel in the chat. Long live Habitual line steps. You know how we do, Roger. Yay. Anyway, I didn't get a chance to watch the video or whatnot, but I seen the title. I am a father of a daughter, so I know the trials and tribulations and the perils and the grief and the highs and the lows that come with a father-daughter relationship. So I'm pretty to understand every aspect, everything that most of the men have been through. And majority of y'all right, I have my own perils with my own kids, but that's neither here nor there. Otherwise, but and on this subject, I am empathetic. I am. It wouldn't seem like it from the outside looking in. Most guys who've heard me speak, but I am empathetic because it is a problem. Especially those blue pill type fathers. Those ones who will fall for the proxy violence, fall for the crocodile tears, and defend, no matter what. Knowing your kids in the wrong. Now, I don't abide by those guys. Those kind of guys, they make my ass hold. I'm just gonna be, yeah. They don't. They've been so diluted by the gynocracy their whole lives, and then they keep placating to it when they get their own kid, and she happens to be a female. You're not fixing the situation or making it better. I guess one of the main reasons why my ex-wife didn't want to be with me because I wasn't that type of father. I held my stepson accountable, my daughter accountable, and I held her accountable and myself. And accountability in the black community is like kryptonite. We don't like it. We don't like it for the most part. You have to hold you and yours accountable if you want your house to prosper.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, AL, this particular thing that got presented, brother, this is so far beyond what you would assume it is. You got to just see it, man. I'm real talk, man. You got to see this one. This was not truly about black fathers and black daughters.
Okay,
this was
I tell you what, I'm gonna go in the back chat and I'm gonna pull it up and I'm gonna look at it while y'all keep talking. Hopefully, it won't. How long is it, Roger? How long?
Nah, you missed it because it was like 30 minutes. The video itself was like 30 minutes.
Maybe I was looking at it wrong. Okay.
Yeah, but
10 minutes on each father. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. No, but if for some reason it kept popping up that it was more than an hour, but when it actually showed, it was only a half hour. But I'm saying, this was really not about black men and black fathers. This was literally about black women getting their chance to dump on black men. That's all this was really about. Okay, and it was really just saying, even if you a quote unquote good dad, you still not. That's all this really was.
Who are they to say that when the CDC really came out 4 years, 5 years
this is way before all that happened. This is way this come out this from the 90s, brother.
1992 special edition of special.
I recommend you go see it. I recommend you do watch it. But I'm saying you really can't make good comments on this particular show without seeing that because it's so far gone for what you would assume it is.
I'll keep my comments reserved until during the after show when we go to the backstage.
But I would say this because you are going to participate in the after show. Not that I'm gonna ever tell people to stop watching the Rogers Report live. I would say go and check it out now. So when we get to backstage, you already be in tune.
Because if I do that, I'm gonna let it rip regardless. So all right, I'm gonna follow your instruction, and I can follow assignment. I'm gonna go step back and I'm gonna check it out.
Well, I'm saying we're gonna have it's gonna help with the backstage stuff that we do after the fact.
If I may, AL,
yes, sir.
You know why you should watch it?
Yes, sir.
You should watch it because you're actually in that video seeing the influence over your ex-wife, because you're kind of seeing sort of her generation or maybe the generation before her. You're seeing the kind of influence and the dogma and the propaganda that you dealt with. You kind of hear it coming from them. Like I said, those women, I would say today, those women are at least in the range of, I think the oldest woman, the first woman is probably at or near 8, because she seemed to be pushing 60 or whatever in the video.
And
the other women seem to be about, they probably are at the very early today, late 50s, maybe 60 today. So just to give you some perspective of who they are today, it kind of, when you watch that video, you'll kind of see or hear maybe what the influence is. Maybe you kind of hear or see your ex-mother-in-law, for example, that sort of generation of women. And it kind of give you some perspective about some of maybe what you dealt with.
Absolutely. It's gonna be there. You gonna see it. I'm not gonna say it's gonna be no maybe. You gonna see it, brother. You definitely gonna see it.
I'm about to jump back in. I'm about to check it out. All right, I'll be back. Hey, don't y'all go nowhere. Y'all better stay in the after show. I'm blazing for real. Don't go no mother freaking where. I'll be back. Deuces.
All right, and we'll be there. That's for sure. That's for sure. Now, everybody else, y'all stay tuned right here. Real talk. That's special for AL. Okay. But we ain't telling nobody to stop watching the Rogers Report live. But Shark Sims has come to join us, so let me let Shark get in. Shark, you got it, my brother.
Peace, Roger. Now, for the record, I've glimpsed through the joint, right? And I already seen my mom's in there. Not my real mother, but women just like my mom's. But I had pushback for H Rebels. 80s, we was the drug dealers of the world. 90s, we was the worst fathers of the world. 2000s, from 2000 to 2010, we was like the rappers and the gangsters, right? 2010 to now, black men are the face of homosexuality for media. Everything you see, it's a black homo nigga and a homo man in the joint. So they never stop. They just change it up. And another level, you go on the internet. We can't talk about what black women do. But boy, the stuff that they say about black men on this internet and nobody pages get flagged or nothing. What is it? So they ain't never took their foot off our necks. We just might not think. We just see a lot of men doing good, but bro, that stuff is still there. Every TV show you watch, it's either it's always there. Literally always there. Look at the Roger just reviewed Straw. With the black men in Straw, Roger, what was they presented as?
Well, you know what? I'm a save Straw, and the only reason I'm gonna save commentary on Straw, because y'all Monday we gonna do a full breakdown on Straw. We're not just gonna do a movie review. We diving into that.
Yeah,
Real
Roger.
talk.
I was gonna, because I think we held back on the review.
the review just be a review, but we doing a deep dive into it on Monday.
Okay.
You know what I'm saying?
I was gonna bring that up too, Shark. But yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So and I'm saying it now to give y'all. Let me just say it real quick, Shark. I'm saying that now just to give y'all a chance to see the movie Straw. If you're unaware of the movie Straw, it is on Netflix. You ain't got to go nowhere. It's right on Netflix. Go ahead, Shark.
And then, so the media, and then now look, we in 2025, 24, 25. They done knocked down Bill Cosby. Now they going after the men who made it past the veil and became big superstars all over the world, and they trying to chop that down now. Yeah. So white supremacy. I don't even like saying white supremacy, but that whole thing. I always tell people there's more than one way of war. You don't have to shoot missiles.
Real talk.
Yeah, it's the information and propaganda war. There's actually a name for that, but it was essentially information and propaganda war. But I guess I'm not actually. I guess I'm not even trying to defend it. I just say the pushback that we're giving is our voice added to the noise to actually rebuke and debunk and give some actual truth to this message to basically dump all over black men. See, because and you guys know, so I know I come to your show quite a bit, Roger, but every now and then I pop in on other people's shows, and all anybody knows about black men, especially black men and black people, but black men specifically, is nothing but negative stuff. So when I get in these panels, I get up in there, and when I start actually just spouting off the actual data and giving references, reports, the agencies and stuff like that, people get upset. They start kicking me off panels. They get mad at it. They're like, "Who is this guy to come in here and actually give us the truth?" They get upset about that. That actually pisses people off.
Yeah, because that's where the money is. Think about it. I told my homeboy, if it wasn't for Angry Man, Obsidian, and O'Shea making this damn manosphere thing, black men wouldn't
you got to put the black on it. You got to put the black on it. The black manosphere.
The black manosphere. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. The black manosphere, we still wouldn't have a voice. That's why they hate the black manosphere so much. Because it's nigga, shut your ass up.
Yeah, I've lost track of the number of panels I've been kicked off of. People that especially white men get real upset. White people in general, but white men specifically, especially when you involve them and you actually highlight their degeneracy. They're like, and when you can actually compare and contrast, because they love to compare black men to white men, and then when I actually give them the truth about it, boy, man, they get hot. They're ready to get me off that panel.
Yeah, and that's why I started, my first channel. Because I understand, you know what I'm saying? I understood the importance of having your stamp out there in the public sphere, and real talk. It worked for Hitler, and people can say whatever they want, but looking at what Hitler was able to accomplish, you couldn't tell me nothing else after that. Once I found out propaganda worked for Hitler, I said, well, guess what? We can't get the truth out there. It's just going to take somebody with enough gumption to do it long enough, hard enough, strong enough that the truth going to start getting out there no matter what. And which I'm glad I'm doing, and I'm not going to stop. And I'm glad I've been the influence of other people who've been much bigger than me to get certain things out there. I'm proud of the fact that you out there doing what you do. Because I know a little something from over here is definitely helping you in those places. So I'm glad you out there, quote unquote, spreading the gospel. You know what I'm saying?
I'm up there as long as I can last on the panel, Roger. They kick me off. I mean, people get real mad. They're like, "Oh, this guy knows way too much. He's talking too much sense. He's actually." I told you that dude who runs around the country talking all that nonsense. I stood in front of him, and they were like, "Ooh, well, nobody's really done that. That dude."
Yeah,
but again, I did have the advantage of being older and more knowledgeable and wiser and stuff like that. But
and I'm just gonna say
I
real
won't
quick,
say the guy's name. I don't want to give him no shout.
But I'm gonna say this real quick. He ain't gonna never put that video out. But go ahead.
Yeah. And then the other thing too is by the way, it's called information operations. That's what it's called. You guys, it's the colloquial name is or the informal name is essentially propaganda, but the military calls it information operations. That's what Hitler was doing. That's how he was able to convince people to do all of his dirty work for him. But the other thing too is I think AL just took off. He mentioned that report about black men being the best fathers. So that report comes out in 2013. And I want y'all to know something about that report. Because all of that stuff is true. The information is true. It's about active fathers. They profile. You had to be an active father, by the way. So active black fathers, when they're present, they're doing all the stuff they're supposed to do. They do it better than anybody else. That was measured against white, Asian, Hispanic, all of these other fathers, right? And the reason people don't like that is that it actually proves or disproves it and debunks the narrative. So even when you bring that up, people try to figure out ways to try to debunk that, right? Or they'll just try to. But you notice what the CDC hasn't done? That was a 2013 report. Now, when you start doing studies, sociology, behavioral patterns and stuff like that, anything relating to behavior or sociology or psychology, any study is good for anywhere from 5. They try to about every 5 to 7 years they do a study, which is why if a study is older than 5 years, you can't use it. You can stretch it out to 7, but after that, then it becomes inaccurate, right? Because it's like, oh, well, that's old data. You notice they haven't done another study? You notice that?
Well, I'm gonna say they ain't told us that they've done studies like that because I know why it is. The same information is coming out. It's consistently black fathers are the best fathers.
Yeah, it's going
That's
to
a
be
very
the same
consistent thing. So at the end of the day, when you say married black fathers are better than married non-black fathers, and then you say, well, black fathers who are raising children on their own are better than the other guys who are raising children on their own, you ain't got nowhere to go. And that's just what it is at the end of the day. Because I've heard people say they went and looked at it more stuff, and this came out this year, and this came out that next year, and the information stayed the same. So yeah, and that's why that will never be promoted. And even though we have said something, if my memory is correct, I think BGS is the one that presented the study, or he's the one I'm aware of that presented the study to the space, and then we was able to go check on it. But this ain't never been presented anywhere. I ain't never heard about this study outside of we doing content. I ain't heard about this study yet.
Yeah, and the CDC is actually
it was published. It was published in the New York Times initially, and I think it was one of the black columnists referenced the study. One of the black columnists at the New York Times, a black man, I think, referenced the study. So I think it's one of those things that for whatever reason got past the editorial process, and then there was some social political response to it that might have ruffled the feathers of some people, and so now we're going to be a little more cautious about whether and how we release that kind of information, because they probably got some responses from allies that they did not necessarily anticipate getting. And they were not necessarily favorable responses, particularly if they have an especially feminist, black misandrous position. See, a lot of times, and this is kind of tricky. This is tricky. A lot of times, white people don't necessarily know how much black women hate black men. lot of times they don't necessarily understand the depth of that antipathy. You know, look, some of them are, you know, you got different kinds of white people. You know, I know we all think of them as a monolith, but you'll be surprised at how surprised they are about what's going on between us. Some of them are shocked. You know, like of some of the stuff that we talk about going on. They are aghast at a lot of what goes on. And so probably what happened with that report it got through is a great report about Black men. You know, this is going to be a good story. The next thing you know, they're hearing from Black women, and they're dumping on that story, and they're like, whoa, what happened? You know, and so now going forward, they're going to be much more cautious about that sort.
Well, let me just say real quick too, and there is a difference when you're reading something about a report versus you're reading something with a reference to a report. Because when it comes to mainstream media, I ain't really heard about that report. Now I'm aware of what Oprah said. Somebody just mentioned in the chat. I'm aware of that, but I'm saying when it comes to mainstream media, I ain't heard anybody talk about that report. That's just something we aware of. And that's why even when I've had people come on my panel before,
you're talking about visual media. That's what you're talking about.
What visual media or just in general, it doesn't seem like anybody is aware that that report.
But you understand the New York Times is the newspaper of record of the United States.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
I mean, when it's published in the New York Times, it's published everywhere. Published in the LA Times, Chicago Tribune. So I mean, it definitely hit the written media, if not the visual media. It definitely hit the written media.
But what I'm saying is, you said it was the report was referenced. It was not a story about the report, correct?
No, it was a story about the report. It was an actual one of the writers of the New York Times wrote an article that referenced and cited that report.
Yeah, that seems like one of the ones that slipped through. They're like, "Oh, we didn't mean for this to get through."
Yeah. That okay. Now I understand. Now I get what you're saying. Yeah,
you got to understand, but you got to understand. I think a lot of times we think these people operate in monoliths, and they don't. And sometimes, like I say, this particular editor or this particular relationship between this writer and this editor is not necessarily. I don't put it this way. I suspect that they did not anticipate the response to them that they got. I think, for example, look, if you released that report 20, 25 years ago, you don't get that response because we don't have the access to 20, 25 years ago. So you can release that and it just be a nice, feel-good story that comes and goes. But with the internet, with social media, it gets all chopped up and hacked up. Now it's appearing, it's being featured in live streams and debated, and millions of Black men are pointing to it and saying, "Look, we're the best fathers in America." So that response is what influences, or the activity that comes after it is what influences the response. Like, oh, this response is much more challenging than we anticipated it to be. I think that's what happened. Yeah. The response to it, I think, took them off guard.
And now that you said what you said, and I'm gonna say yes, because I am definitely referring to more visual media because that's the way the world is going at this particular point. Younger people do not read newspapers the way folks used to back in the day. And I know personally, I'm one of them myself because for a long time, I wouldn't read any newspaper and I wouldn't watch any news story on television. I didn't start really watching news again until I got to social media. And I had to, in order for me to start presenting some of the stuff I present, I had to start, dealing with news stories and things again. But I had there was it was a financial reason that I would avoid newspapers and news stories because it was too much negative stuff. And I know you can only accept so much negative stuff before it overtakes you. So there's only so much negative I will deal with. Y'all would not believe the stuff I listen to when I'm not talking about the stuff that I've done on air. And once I start reading, I would purposely go look at other stuff just to combat what the other negative stuff I did when I'm researching stuff for a show. You know what I'm saying? Because I'm never going to let negative stuff outweigh with the positive stuff I get. Okay.
Yeah,
but
that makes sense.
Yeah, but I got to make an effort to make sure that I don't have the negative overtake me. But we got MVP Michelle Obama who done came in, so let me give him the mic. You got it, MVP, coming at 2 hours 59 minutes and some seconds before he says his first word. But it's all good.
Well, I mean, I just wanted to get. It'll be really quick. It'll be really quick.
Nah, brother, you good. You good.
I just wanted to, because I don't have children, but I tried my best to watch all that. But now I understand where Michelle gets that crap from. Like, I just now a man who's working from 7 to 7, 12 hours, renders their partner a single mother. That is nasty work. Also, children are at school from like 8 to 4, 8 to 3, and you got their extracurricular activities. Black women really got to be lazy. God, they got to be lazy, right? I mean, the kids are not even there half the time. And on top of that, anybody who lived with a father knows that the father doesn't just come home and sleep. He checks homeworks. He checks your exams. He asks you about school. He makes sure you do your chores, take out your trash, etc., etc. I don't know one black father who doesn't do that. When I was living with my father, he did that. He just didn't come home from work and just went to his room and sleep and shit. The hell? Man. But anyway, I know we're going to wrap up the show, so I'll leave it there, man. But you know what?
Thanks for that. That's actually good stuff. I appreciate you saying that. Because you're absolutely right. That's exactly the stuff I did. Remember, I had the challenge of being away for months at a time. So when I would come, I try to make up for it, right?
Well, I'm just gonna say this: Michelle Obama, Jada Pinkett Smith, and Bell Hooks and the likes. There is a special place in hell for y'all. There's a very special place, and I'll end it there.
Yeah, the guys who are there every day.
But let's focus on what happened there. Okay, so she went from, you got a young couple, her father and her parents, then they have her, right? And she gets a lot of attention, whatever. Then she has a younger brother. Well, here's the thing with the father. I go from a wife to one child to two child to three people to take care of. Now, she didn't say her mother worked. So that father goes from just being by himself to what, three people he's got to take care for, including himself, four people he's got to take care of. And what looks to be a 3-4 year period. So should it surprise anyone that suddenly he's got to work more hours and do more work to take care of this growing family? See, that's the problem with presenting this story from this perspective, this childish perspective, and no questioning at all, and no commentary at all, no empathy for what that man likely was thinking about and dealing with. He's a black man. He may be struggling to get and keep work. I mean, we're talking about she might have been 30. This is 98. So this could have been the 60s or 70s. I mean, if you know how black men trying to get and keep work in the 60s and the 70s, you can imagine the kind of pressure and struggle he was dealing with.
Right, but it's not even that, because I remember like clubs. Can I learn music? Can I do dance? Because I lived with my father for a while, right? So I was in Boy Scouts. That cost extra money. Private school, that was extra money. Swim club, that was extra money. So because my father worked a lot, we had privileges, right? But see, nobody wants to talk about that shit.
But here's the thing: your father was a professional. Your father was a professional, right?
Right. Yeah. Chemist.
Right. So at least he had, opportunities, abroad.
Well,
I
I'm
mean,
saying
if
for any,
this
I'm
was a
saying for
working
any
class,
black man, like a blue collar guy,
but,
right?
I'm saying, I'm trying to view it from the perspective of what was presented there.
Right.
I'm thinking a working class black man in the 60s and 70s, and he's got a growing family.
Right.
He's probably got a lot of pressure on his mind. At that time, and I got to keep them at a comfortable level. And if he's not particularly well educated, then he is working 60 plus hours a week.
But what I'm saying is that, what she doesn't talk about is probably all the clubs she did in her childhood. That's what I'm saying. She's probably omitting that. She's not talking about all the vacations or small trips that her father paid for. She's not talking about the clubs she probably did that her father had to pay for, right? Because nobody just goes to school and come home, right? Friends join clubs and do this and that, right? Like most girls back then, they did tap, right? Back in the day. Most black girls did tap.
Yeah.
And I'm gonna say,
and stuff
she
like
said
that.
that she said she grew up amongst white people. Now, I ain't no rocket science,
at
but
least
back
Girl Scouts.
then, well, I'm just saying,
That
I'm not a
explains
rock.
why he was working 60 some hours.
That's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, when you say you was living amongst white people, she said I had two scattered black friends when I was growing up. So you in some white area. How much does it cost for a black man to actually get that done? Now, if he's a professional, a little bit easier. And if he ain't a professional, I mean, either way you go, you screwed anyway. What black man could afford to live in a white neighborhood in those times without putting some real work in somewhere?
Well,
a blue collar worker at that point, especially a blue collar black male worker, would have had he'd have
Even white collar though, even white collar, he would have been getting the short end of the stick in just about every single situation. So even if you was a white collar guy, you still gonna have to put a lot of hours in.
But what I'm saying, gentlemen, is this, right? Because people like to omit shit. So beyond getting the clothes and beyond getting school clothes, school supplies, house, groceries, and shit like that, children ask for shit. They ask for toys. They ask for clubs. They ask to go here. They ask to go there. They ask for pocket money, right? Like they're fucking expensive. It's a fucking money pit. And so you're complaining about your husband working, but are you gonna pay the tuition for tap dance? Are you gonna pay for Girl Scouts?
Well, she technically was complaining about her dad working. She technically was complaining about her dad.
The psychologist
said the same dumb shit.
The black female psychologist
in the blue dress. Yeah.
Yeah, she signed off on the psychologist signed off on the nonsense. And they did that delivery. They get you a psychologist so you can make ridiculous statements, and a psychologist is there to justify your ridiculous statements. Because
on top of making sure everybody homework's done.
The psychologist is not justifying. Listen to me. The psychologist is not backing it up. The psychologist is the one who's writing it. She's the one who's creating the language.
First. Yeah, she presented it first.
She's not quoting other people. She's creating the language.
Yeah,
she is authenticating that argument of a married woman being a single mother. Yeah. She's the one who writes a book, puts in quotation a married single mother. It gets published, and then Michelle Obama reads it at Princeton or someplace like that.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's the intellectual. That's how you intellectualize the misandry right there. Is you get basically a PhD to sign off on it.
Because here's the rub, right? So now you have your wife and two children, right? So your family of four. So now you got to make money because I mean, besides just the basic needs, right? You want to have a little bit of comfort, color TV, clubs, school trips and shit like that, right? So now here's the rub. Now, if you don't supply that, now you ain't shit.
Yeah.
Right? See, that's the other part. So now you don't work 12 hours if you're blue collar, and you just do your 8. Now your kid can't go to tap. Your kid can't go to football or taekwondo, because that was my generation, right? Girls went to tap, kids went to taekwondo or Boy Scouts, because your father only working 8 hours, but all the other kids in the neighborhood are doing taekwondo, Boy Scouts, and tap. Now you ain't shit.
Yeah.
So
And well,
you're not really appreciating.
and the part about them being in a white community, you cannot state you're trying to compete in a mostly white community in what, the 1960s, 1970s. Can you imagine that? Can you imagine the pressure that dude is under to maintain that? Of course,
He was already being.
That totally explains why he started drinking.
Because your lawn better not be fucked up at all, or you out of there. HOA.
Well, not only that, he was already being
trying to figure out a
overcharged.
way to either get you out of there, or they trying to move away from
you. You know, his lawn was immaculate, guys. You know, his stuff was immaculate. He had the best fucking curb appeal on the block.
Well, so he was already being overcharged too. If you were anywhere near white folks in the 60s and 70s, you were already being overcharged. Just to be, and it wasn't so much to be around them. It was actually to be around the resources that they had, right?
Right.
See, people do this thing where they go, well, you want to be next to white people. No, you want to be next to the resources, that you want to provide the best resources and schools and everything else that you can for your kids. Now, just to even be near them, I guarantee that dude was being overcharged.
Yeah.
He was absolutely being overcharged.
So yeah,
he was paying more for his house, paying or whatever. Well, I doubt he was renting. He probably bought the house, so he was paying more to keep that house in that neighborhood. And then on top of that, the additional activities. Yeah, there's not enough appreciation there for what this gentleman was going through.
Right. So see, that's the thing, right? We don't calculate the price of maintenance, right? So when you buy a Ferrari, even though a Ferrari is really expensive, that's not what makes the Ferrari expensive. The Ferrari upkeep, the maintenance makes it expensive. And so when you live in that type of lifestyle, the maintenance is expensive.
Yeah.
Right. And then we want to criticize niggas for working, but yet you want the lifestyle. And people gotta understand, well, this lifestyle has a maintenance. Property tax is you got property tax that you're paying every year. Right? And then you got whatever HOA fees, things like that, and then you got to keep your house clean, your lawn good and good condition, stuff like that. Cars got to be washed, because you know those white people are looking for anything to get you up out of there.
You got to think I understand she reported as, I guess, through the eyes of a young girl, right, as a kid. But I'm just saying, as a mature adult, I mean, I think, you were saying you estimate she's probably in her 30s, right? You don't think she knows that, like, money has to be spent, like, you have to work? She's doing it. She don't care about any of that stuff. She don't give a damn. She's putting out her narrative, and that's what she wants to put out. She doesn't have any empathy or anything for her dad like that. Like, as an adult with a fully functioning brain, like, she can understand, yeah, man, we lived in this neighborhood, I ate every day. I had clothes on my back. I lived in this neighborhood.
You remember that interview that Kevin Samuels did with that young woman who was saying all that negative stuff about her father, and the man paying all her bills, and she's living a middle class or upper middle class lifestyle. And she's saying all this thing about the negative stuff about her quality of life and how she expects to live better than the livelihood that her father spent the 30 years or whatever giving to her and her mother. You all remember that, don't you?
Yes.
Yeah. So
it's kind of like a younger black girl, right? Yeah. Yes, that's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Like, they don't care.
She was a 20-something. She was a 20-something year old. Yeah. And she had no regard at all for the quality of life that her father had given her. She had never wanted for anything. Her father had paid her way through college. All of that didn't mean anything.
Yeah, can y'all hear me?
Yeah, we got you
Yeah.
now.
Okay, well, see, this is the thing. Yeah, this is the thing. This ain't got nothing to do with the man outside of his color. Because at the end of the day, if you go to work, they crap on you because you went. If you don't go to work, they crap on you because you didn't. It's that simple at the end of the day. You cannot be correct. You cannot be right. Period. Because you a nigga. Niggas don't get to be right. Niggas can only be wrong. You can only be too short. No matter how you got to being too short. You're too short because you didn't have enough money, and you're too short because you didn't have enough time. It don't make no difference which one you pick. You know? And this is why I've said on more than one occasion, that's why I don't even listen to black women. You know?
You know what's messed up about that is that if you show simple and basic appreciation and gratitude, men have no trouble working hard in order to make sure you have not only what you need, but most of what you want that they can give you. They have no issue with that.
But
You just
Roger,
gotta appreciate it.
I want to say something to you and to you, Black Guru, both of you. I really want to thank y'all because I've been set free. This podcast has set my black ass free because me breaking my neck for a woman ain't gonna never happen. It ain't never gonna happen. And I'm happy to be ain't shit.
I have
So
a
thank you.
question. I have
Would
a
you do it for your
question.
kids?
I have a question for Hot Sauce. Does that also apply for your mother too?
No. That's no.
I thought so. I thought so.
AL, bro, don't cross the line. You can't come back from.
Don't do it.
Cross the line about. I heard exactly what you said. That's why I posed that question. Like I
Okay.
said,
Hey. Just a friendly warning, right?
Well, that's why I qualified it by saying that if the people who you're doing all this hard work for show appreciation, then there's no issue with it. If they appreciate it, they show gratitude, they thank you.
Yeah.
They're like, I appreciate you. I see what you're doing. I see how hard you work for
Yeah,
for
but
me. I see how hard you work for us.
Kevin C, I'm not even gonna try, brother. I ain't even gonna try.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just,
It
I
is
just
what it
noticed that
is.
men don't have any issue with it. I just,
I
the other thing too is you have to actually. Go ahead.
Well, I mean, to me, the issue just going forward is that of reciprocity and accountability. To the extent that you get your requisite reciprocity, and to the extent that you can make them accountable for what they need to do, then you can make something happen. I mean, that's why I think a gift to this environment is Tunnel Run. I think Tunnel Runner is a gift to this environment because he regularly explained what it means to have a wife who reciprocates to him and is accountable to him and accountable to other people, because it's just as important as she be accountable to her family and to other women, people who say, look, you have a role, you have a job you must fulfill for this man and for this family. So I think with Tunnel Runner, go ahead.
But what I'm saying is this, because I appreciate what Tunnel, because my woman is foreign too. I'm still not breaking my neck for her.
Well, I mean, I don't think Tunnel Runner describes breaking. He don't really appear to be describing breaking his neck for his woman.
Man.
He don't appear to do that from what I hear. Yeah.
Right. I'll tell you what I told her. Look, my mom, my kids are related to me. You the odd man out in this bitch. So.
Well, I mean, she accepts those conditions.
As long as that understanding is there.
Yeah, she understood it. She understood it because I said, look, man, look. If we have kids, my mom's related to me, the kids related to me. So, act accordingly. She's
so
okay.
I want to add something to this too. So, that whole thing about gratitude, sometimes you have to teach people about gratitude because they get so much negative messaging that the negative messaging overtakes what really should be a natural, grateful process, right? For example, there should be no reason that Michelle Obama should be running around here talking about she's a married single mother, because Barack should have checked that, right? He should
Yeah,
be
but
like, hey,
let me tell you
Uh,
something. If your parents have not taught you to be gracious and to have gratitude, I'm not there to do that for you, cuz.
I agree.
I'm not there for that. I'm not.
yeah,
Fuck that. I'm not teaching a grown ass woman gratitude.
not at all. Not at all.
yeah, I would agree with you on that. But still, he should have shut that down real quick though. And there should have been a follow-up statement. Well, this is what I meant to say. I didn't mean it like that. But yeah, because that's still lingering out there. By the way,
Let's be real. Let's be real and plain about the Obama. All well that ends well, because he became president and he got a lifetime pension and Secret Service detail and he's got millions of dollars. So all well that ends well for that particular couple.
She gonna divorce his ass.
Universe. Let me finish. In an alternative universe, he had no business being with her beyond that first date.
Yeah.
And on Earth 2 or whatever, that wasn't supposed to happen.
But she is gonna run his pockets though. At some point, she's gonna take half his shit. She will run those pockets. Please believe me.
Yeah. Well, okay. So now let's talk about we're on Michelle Obama right now. Let's talk about the fact that she somehow didn't learn gratitude because remember when you read her books, or at least when you read the summary of her book. I didn't read the book. I just read the summary of it. Right. She talks about all the hard, and you listen to her in her interviews. She talks about all the hard work that her father did. Her father specifically to make sure that she had that Princeton education, that she had the best of everything, that she was well taken care of, despite all the hardships that he ran up against as a black man during that time frame. And that was even in her book. She talked about not only with her father, but she talked about it with her some of her what do you call it, uncles. One uncle was really upset about the fact that he was held back, knowing that he had the talent to be much more than what he was allowed to be in U.S. society. He was just angry all the time about it. So she knew that. She got all of that. She just said, you know what? So what?
Well, how does that make her any different than from the three women we saw on the video? Sound very much like them, and she's about the age of the second and the third one. That like I say, late 50s, early 60s. That's around that same generation of women.
And you don't know that's what I'm saying. So she was taught. She just decided to
hold on. You don't know exactly where them people from. Michelle could have been hanging out with them. And that's real talk.
Exactly.
But hold on. Let me get these cash apps out. Shout out to Landon. Okay, shout out to Landon. He sent in a $2 cash app. He says, F with your tax. Hey, appreciate it, brother. Appreciate you. I ain't gonna curse on that, y'all. But he said, F with your tax. Appreciate that. And shout out to Revelator, the spirit of indifference. He says, to the greatest show on social media with the $5 cash app. Appreciate you big time, brother. Appreciate you big time. Okay. All right. Go ahead, brother.
Yeah. I was just going to say, so I just went down the list of things that she was taught, that she was talked about her father in her book, about even her extended male family members and the stuff that they suffered. And she still overrode all of that to say that she's a single mother, married single mother.
And let me just throw this out there. When a book is written, it may not even be her words. So I personally don't believe Michelle wrote none of that about her father, because I haven't heard Michelle say anything positive about her family. I'm just throwing that out there. I ain't saying she didn't. It's not like I be stalking.
But she's done it in interviews. So.
No. I hear you. But I'm saying everything I saw, she never did that. So obviously, it's not something that's regular to her. You know, before I lost my last channel, ain't nowhere in the world you could go listen to that channel on a regular basis and don't think I have a good impression of my family. It's so random when it comes out when I speak about my family. You know what I'm saying? I've said it so much. There's nowhere in the world you're gonna perceive I got a bad thought process about my family as a whole. I think I come from one of the greatest families still left around on both sides. You know what I'm saying? So you're not going to get that impression. Michelle, I've seen speak in interviews, not that I like watching Michelle, because I ain't going to say I do, but I ain't never hear her talk positive about her family. Well, I say this, because she now has a podcast, and we did review an episode. I had to watch the whole episode. I have never but it took the podcast, he looking at it. So
Breaking up, Roger. Can't hear you, bro. Can't hear you.
Yeah, you're coming in broken and distorted. Yeah, he's going through the.
I just wanted to throw in a lot of times, man. I think a lot of black men, we're manipulated by this stuff. A lot of times these women, they try to hide their black misandry by putting in a few tidbits of, oh, I love black men, or my father was great, when they still have a hatred, man, but we put our guards down because we hear they say one, two good things or relatively good things about a black man, their father, or something like that, man. But really, they're feminists and they have black misandry, man. And we put our guards down when we hear one or two quotes.
Well, that's why you have to watch what they actually do versus what they say.
Exactly.
It all comes out in their behavior, and men can see that. The intelligent ones, the ones who are logical, and they can see the difference. They can reconcile the difference between what you actually say versus how you actually carry yourself and how you behave on a regular basis. That's why we know you're a hoe when you're out here trying to present yourself as somebody who's virginal and innocent. We're like, nah, you're a hoe.
Yeah, but yo, fellas, I gotta go, right? But I want to give a shout out and a happy Father's Day to y'all motherfuckers, H-Rev, AL, Uru, and Jado. I know you a pops too, and everybody else, Chef Mike and all y'all. Y'all have a happy Father's Day, and I'm gonna catch y'all suckers on Monday. And you keep your foot on their goddamn neck, all right, fellas?
All right, thanks for that. We appreciate that.
Appreciate that, bro.
Y'all be good. Don't be in no trouble.
Yeah. We might need an additional day for Father's Day because it gets sandwiched in between a lot of stuff that's going on. You got Black Music Appreciation Month. You got the the LBGT. You got the Pride Month. You got the Juneteenth celebration. There's a lot going on in June. That kind of where fathers used to have just June by themselves.
When is Father's Day?
This weekend.
All right, well, happy Father. I'm going to also peel off. Happy Father's Day to you, gentlemen. Black Guru, Kevin C.
Well,
Jada.
hold on. Before you peel off, what I was just about to do is say, let's do a quick round of final statements because I got to step away and grab something real quick. So can we do when you might as well finish yours out, but let's do final statements from everybody to give me enough time to get back and close it out myself. So go ahead with yours, and then everybody else give a final statement, and then we going to be done, okay?
Yeah, well, happy Father's Day this weekend to you, gentlemen. Wish you guys all the best. Hope you get the, get the love and appreciation that all you guys deserve. And just remember, if you don't, there's a strip club probably 5 miles away. So, y'all take care. Bye.
All right, I'll go ahead and go. Yeah, so good topic as it relates to the overall message that documentary or that series was trying to send. We see that it was a negative message because I really expected when I was hearing something about fathers and daughters, I'm expecting something positive all the way through. So I was absolutely disappointed. But then again, it tracks with what people were trying to do at that time as it relates to basically dumping on black men. So what I say is, and then if you happen to be present in any of those conversations and discussions, be the guy that actually challenges these narratives and level sets the conversation and puts everybody back on track. And forces at least the people that you're having that discussion with to think about what it is they're saying instead of just following these negative narratives that you hear all the time about black men. Because trust and believe, when you give them the corrections, At least for that minute, for that time frame, it challenges their thinking, and a lot of times it throws them off. So be the guy who's doing that if you get the opportunity. I'll go ahead and leave it right there. Good show, Roger. Thanks for letting me up.
Yeah, definitely excellent show, Roger. Once again, my thing is, I just challenge black men, young and old, or whatever, to really be observant when we're taking in, looking at this media and stuff. Look at the subtleties, the things that are omitted, the vague things that they put out there, things with no context whatsoever, and just kind of think, exactly what's going on and why they're presenting this, what type of motives they have for presenting whatever they're presenting, and just really think about it. And I try to look at this stuff, and I look at compare it to what I've seen in my life, and what's reality. And a lot of times what they're presenting, stuff like this link that Roger presented, just didn't add up. So just look at those things with an observant eye, and catch it. And if you can combat it, if you can counter it, definitely do so. And I'll end right there. Happy Father's Day to the fathers.
Did everybody get in?
Yeah,
I'm steady getting knocked off.
I was about to start.
Did everybody get in?
No,
okay. Go ahead. My bad.
Roger, I went back. I watched what you asked me to watch. I observed. I'm in agreement with everybody else. I did not like what I saw. I did not like the perspective that was shown and portrayed about those gentlemen. It was all backhanded comments and snarky remarks, not in a disrespectful manner, but not in a positive manner neither. It all led back to a woe is me game, nothing more, nothing less that I saw, nothing more, nothing less that I've seen and witnessed in my own life before. So, I mean, overall, I appreciate you for doing the show. It was much needed. It was relevant, but I'm in agreement with all the rest of the gentlemen. It was nothing on the positive end and side that was presented that showed black men in a good light whatsoever, or the fathers in a good light whatsoever. So I'm in total agreement, but I digress.
Yeah, that was everybody, Roger.
Okay. All right, then I'm gonna wrap it up because I'm having some internet connection problems myself. But we gonna be backstage talking, and if y'all want to come up or whatever the case is, I ain't finna go nowhere. But I'm definitely having connection issues at the moment, so I'm gonna definitely wrap this up right now. I hope everyone has a great Father's Day, and y'all keep in mind we got to start paying more attention to the information than the presentation, because the presentation got us messed up in the game out here, y'all. We got to start looking for the information, not just the presentation. And I'm going to leave it there before I go out again. So y'all have a good rest of y'all day. If you're new here, make sure you subscribe to the channel. If you're old here, resubscribe. Well, technically subscribe to the new channel. And we're going to keep it pushing, y'all. Prepare yourselves on Monday. I'm going to suggest you watch the movie Straw, that we're going to go into a deep dive on Straw on Monday, because that was a very interesting movie. And a black man's perspective really needs to be put out about this. Real talk, okay? Because it's some discussions floating around, but the black man's perspective definitely need to be pushed out. And where you gonna get a better one than right here? Real talk. Y'all have a good rest of y'all day. Long live the habitual line steppers. I'm Roger. I'm right, and I'm out.